Chapter 553 Speed, a Changing Face. Huang Fu Hui Yin Ling Xian had always admired Han Xiling, but he was also aware that with his current strength and achievements, Han Xiling, who was really prideful, would look down at him in her heart. He knew in his heart that there was a possibility that Han Xiling would be willing to be with him. And until now, he saw a glimmer of hope. If he can get the inheritance of a monument, then his strength would be greatly enhanced, and his status will also rise. As a result, he may be able to enter Han Xiling's eyes. However, Han Xiling had now asked him this question. If he continued with this, he would undoubtedly offend Han Xiling. When Han Xiling asked this sentence, everyone's gazes fell onto Yin Ling Xian and became quiet. After all, they were also aware of his entanglement. Han Gunyang, I will naturally not be an enemy of yours. Yin Ling Xian's deep thoughts were said out loud, and in this short time, he already understood a lot of things. Since he would not necessarily succeed, plus Han Xiling is a factor, he really has no need to do this. When Yin Ling Xian said this, the atmosphere changed once again as Lu Huaiyin and the others completely let go. It seemed that this crisis had been quietly resolved. Han Xiling's mouth curved in a smug smile, and her eyes, which had always been cold and silent, were also a little kind and gentle when looking at Yin Ling Xian. Yin Ling Xian noticed the change in Han Xiling's gaze, and he hoped that the feelings in his heart won't show on his face. It seemed that his decision made Han Xiling have a good impression of him. This was the biggest gain of his decision. Bailey Hong Zhuang looked at Yin Ling Xian with a bit of pity, really a poor guy. The reason why Han Xiling had such a change was undoubted that she wanted to show it in front of Di Bei Chun, and Yin Ling Xian had little to do with the changes in Han Xiling. If she were to say, the next time Yin Ling Xian sees Han Xiling again, Han Xiling would turn her face and not even recognize him. Seeing that Yin Ling Xian had also backed out, a flash of light passed in Huang Fu Hui's eyes. He had not expected Yin Ling Xian, this guy, to be planted in the hands of a woman. It was a pity he had given up such a great opportunity. Now, with the help of only one family, he couldn't change the situation at all. On the contrary, they would be hurting themselves. Thinking of this, on Huang Fu Hui's face appeared a smile. Thank you, Di Gongzi and Bailey Gunyang, for opening the stone door. How about we go in? Huang Fu Hui's speed at changing face had always been very fast. Even if he was being indifferent a second before, the next second, as long as it considered a relationship that could give him benefits, he would do anything. Looking at Huang Fu Hui's sudden change, Xia Zhiqing's mouth unknowingly fell open, secretly yelling inside. If it wasn't for her own eyes, she would have to doubt whether Huang Fu Hui in front of hers from before and now was the same person. This speed of changing face, it was absolutely amazing. The children of cultivation families are really something. These means I am completely convinced. Xia Zhiqing was very impressed, and her heart was still envious as she thought of Huang Fu Hui's ability. This kind of guy who was pretty good at changing face should stay far away from them. But honestly, this ability was terrible. Being friends with such a person, even if one were sold out, they wouldn't be able to say anything. Bai Junyu's face also had a touch of approval. It has also been an eye-opener for me. Chapter 554, The Main Hall. Where is the inheritance? Bailey Hong Zhuang's lips curved up in a beautiful smile. Even the children of these cultivation foxes were a group of seasoned foxes. Huang Fu Hui's speed at changing face was indeed very fast, but this ability was also not very beneficial for him, because, as a result, the people who would dare to believe in him would be few. Since the stone door has been opened, everyone can naturally go in. Bailey Hong Zhuang said and smiled, her calm and elegant face unlike the tense atmosphere just moments previously. Di Beichen glanced at Huang Fu Hui, and his thin pink lips rose slightly as an evil, charming laugh sounded. It was a deep smile that made people's heart secretly flustered. However, when everyone thought that Di Beichun had something to say, Di Beichun suddenly turned around and took Bailey Hong Zhuang's hands, walking through the stone door. After Di Beichun went in, Huang Fu Hui was relieved, at least for now, they had avoided frontal conflict. As for the future, let's talk about it later. When Han Xiling saw Bei Chun take Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and walk directly into the main hall, the smile on her face turned colder in an instant, and in her heart was unspeakable disappointment and resentment. After all, she also needed to be credited for this situation, but Bei Chun did not even say a word to her. Xia Zhiqing and the others walked into the main hall behind Bailey Hongzhuang. As soon as they entered the main hall, everyone's eyes were already attracted by the magnificence of the main hall. My God, this main hall is too spectacular. Xia Zhiqing's pretty face was full of exclamation and shock. The scope of this main hall was beyond her imagination. Gong Xiaoqing couldn't help but feel that there was always a taller mountain elsewhere. The hall was strange, seemingly endless, and only after understanding this did he understand how powerful the master was. Even Han Xiling, at the moment she saw the scene in the main hall, she also temporarily put down the dissatisfaction in her heart. After all, the inheritance of the monument was the most important thing. Yin Lingxian and Huang Fu Hui's eyes still lingered over Bailey Hongzhuang and Bei Chen's figures from time to time. They didn't know if the swords they possessed had anything to do with the final inheritance. Feeling Yin Lingxian's gaze, Bailey Hongzhuang was quite indifferent, and Luli was directly into the ring of chaos, and then she carefully observed the entire main hall. The large main hall was very empty except for the two sculptures. Only in the center was a circular pool, like a fountain with clear water inside. On the other hand, there was no other useful thing besides the very beautiful decorations on the wall. Master, just with a glance it looks like there is nothing in the main hall. Yu Xiaohei's face was helpless, and this thing could be seen at a glance. There didn't seem to be anything special. A bright light flashed through Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes, and now she had a certain understanding of the thoughts of the masters. There was absolutely nothing in this big main hall. The treasures must be in a place they didn't know. As for where it was worth deliberating. Be careful, pay attention to the places that others have not noticed, and you should find out. Chapter 555 Taunts. Han Xiling Bailey Hongzhuang was not in a hurry, and her beautiful and exquisite face never revealed even the slightest anxiety. She couldn't eagerly eat hot tofu, and so, calm down, it was possible to find places that others can't notice. Even if we find the inheritance of a monument, it is a problem to pass the assessment to get the inheritance. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows slightly rose. She knew these customary ideas of masters. In order to successfully obtain the inheritance of the monument, it was necessary to pass the test set by the master. Usually, the test of a monument's master was not simple, and the inheritance of the monument was very precious. The master of the relic wanted to select qualified inheritors to continue their legacy, and naturally, they won't give tests easily passed. Once passes, it would be an extremely precious gain. Isn't it said that the masters of monuments have very precious inheritance? There is nothing here at all. I haven't found a single thing since we came in. Were we wrong? Look for it again. When the stone door had yet to be opened, hadn't everyone said that there was no mechanism at all? The originally irritated cultivators were silenced after hearing this sentence. Indeed, they all thought that there was no such thing as an organ in the stone door. The result clearly today them that not only was authority needed, but those with authority were also very obvious. They never found out that they had never had any opportunity. Why is the water in this pool clear even after so many years? Xia Zhiqing stood beside the circular pool, and her beautiful face was full of curiosity. From normal reasoning, after so many years, the water in the pool should have dirted or evaporated. It still being so clear was incredible. Xia Zhiqing's voice just fell, and some cultivators touched the water in the pool directly with their hands. Now, when it has a race against time, if they were a step later than others, perhaps the inheritance would fall into others' hands. However, as everyone checked the pool water, the doubtful expression of their faces became more intense. Not for other reasons, just because this water was plain water, there was nothing special at all. Standing in front of the statue of the woman, Bailey Hong Zhuang stared at the statue. The two statues in the main hall were the most conspicuous. Maybe the test was related to the sculpture's predecessor. I wonder if you have any tests for the younger generation? Bailey Hong Zhuang muttered to herself, but her heart was full of thoughts and speculations, constantly thinking about any possibility. When Han Xiling saw Bailey Hong Zhuang, who was not looking for the inheritance and was even seemingly asking the statue, she couldn't help but sneer in her heart. People who hadn't seen He World were truly inferior. Could it be she thought this statue was alive? Bailey Gunyong, you can't get any results if you ask this statue. Han Xiling sneered. Her words sounded like a conversation between friends. Compared to the previous attitude, it was undoubtedly better, but the meaning and taunt, it was still very obvious. Not far away, Di Beichen saw Han Xiling walk to Bailey Hong Zhuang's side, and his deep and charming eyes flashed with complex emotions, and then he walked to the front of the man's sculpture. The distance between the two sculptures was not far, so standing in this position, he could also hear the conversation between Han Xiling and Bailey Hong Zhuang. Since the monument has been revealed, it is natural it must be the intention of the monument's master. Bailey Hong Zhuang smiled, not putting Han Xiling's words in her heart. Chapter 556 Idiot, Yin Ling Xian. Han Xiling noticed Di Beichen, who had walked over, and the emotion on her face changed slightly, as if she had been kindly advising. The master of this monument has already been dead for many years. Is there anything more to it? Instead of wasting time on this, it's better to find the inheritance. Han Xiling did not care. In her opinion, the masters had died, even if their strength was admirable. Such gestures did not make sense. Since the master of this monument had left it behind, it was nothing more than a hope that their inheritance would not disappear between heaven and earth. As long as they could pick a good successor, it was a great blessing for them. Di Beichen listened to the conversation between the two people. After seeing that Han Xiling did not say any excessive words, he let go of the worries in his heart. In his heart, identity and other things were not important at all. The only important thing was Bailey Hong Zhuang's feelings. It had not been easy for him to get close to her. If he caused Bailey Hong Zhuang to change her mind because of the things recently, it is the last thing he wants to see. Bailey Hong Zhuang looked at the mockery in Han Xiling's eyes and felt thankful their roads were different. In her view, this Han Xiling was somewhat overconfident, and her self-confidence was beyond arrogance. This kind of mentality was the most undesirable for cultivators. There are uncountable people, like mountains beyond mountains, each was stronger than the previous. It was a truth that you needed to be open-minded at all times. Only in this way, the heart would be strong enough. No matter what kind of situation, any blows could be survived. But if one was arrogant, once destroyed by their own destructive self-confidence, it would be nothing less than devastating. In some talented and noble young cultivators, this kind of thing was most common, their arrogance. Yin Ling Xian also came to Han Xiling's side at this moment. Han Gunyong is very good. Even if you pay respects to the statue, the master of the monument won't show up. You're just a joke. Listening to these words, Bailey Hong Zhuang looked indifferently at Yin Ling Xian. Growth is not possible for the narrow-minded. You hold such an attitude towards a master's remains, yet also want their inheritance. I'm afraid it's not that easy. Bailey Gunyong, be more careful. Yin Ling Xian chuckled. The master of the monument is just looking for a suitable inheritor. It's fine as long as the strength and talent are strong enough. This Yin Ling Xian is really an idiot. Xiao He could not help but want to vomit. This guy from beginning to end was a poor worm that was used by Han Xiling, and now he excitedly ran over to provoke their master. Pitiful people can also be really hateful. Yin Ling Xian is such a guy. No one will be sad seeing his misery in the future. Xiao Bai shook his head. For such an idiot, he was too lazy to say more. Since Yin Gongzi is so confident, why is Lu Li not in your hand? Bailey Hong Zhuang's eyes shone brilliantly. Since Yin Ling Xian had ridiculed her in her face, she did not intend to take it lying down. She was also not afraid of conflicts. With Bailey Hong Zhuang's words, Yin Lingxian's face became extremely ugly. These words from Bailey Hong Zhuang had undoubtedly poked his weakness so that he could not answer. Bailey Gunyang, you just had momentary luck, but you were so proud. Aren't you too much? Chapter 557 finds mechanism. Hong Zhuang Han Shiling's eyes were extremely cold. Just a simple sentence, but her arrogant meaning was undoubted. Originally, Yin Lingxian was very angry because of the irony behind Bailey Hong Zhuang's words. At this moment, after seeing that Han Shiling helped him respond, his expression became good. Di Beichen's brows were slightly wrinkled, and he slowly stepped forward and walked to the side of Bailey Hong Zhuang. Without waiting for Di Beichen to speak, Bailey Hong Zhuang spoke out first. Han Gunyang and Yin Gongzi have an excellent relationship. When Yin Gongzi can't speak up, you even become angry on his behalf. Her words made Han Shiling's expression change, and her cold, arrogant face was immediately dyed with a touch of black and blue. On the contrary, Yin Lingxian's eyes were filled with a little joy. He also felt that after the previous things, Han Shiling's attitude towards him had changed significantly. You're speaking nonsense, I didn't. Han Shiling quickly retorted, but her eyes couldn't help but fall onto Di Beichen. Her pretty face was full of anxiousness, only worried that Di Beichen would misunderstand her. Han Gunyang does not need to be so anxious to deny it. I'm just gossiping. Bailey Hong Zhuang smiled enchantingly at her embarrassment. Han Gunyang is so anxious to clear this up, but it really does seem as if you have some feelings. Han Shiling looked gloomily at Bailey Hong Zhuang, glaring. She just wanted to provoke Bailey Hong Zhuang by helping Yin Lingxian. She didn't know that her simple sentence would result in dirty water being poured over her. Most importantly, the deep smile and Bailey Hong Zhuang's words left her no room for an explanation. Di Dage, you have to believe me. Han Shiling looked at Di Beichen with worry. She did not care how other people looked at her. She only cared about Di Beichen's thoughts. Di Beichen's evil charming smile was shown. Yin Gongzi is also a phoenix among men with great potential. With Di Beichen's voice falling, Han Shiling's heart sank to the bottom of a valley in an instant, and she looked incredulously at Di Beichen. Is it that in the past few years, did Di Beichen really have no thoughts about her? Bailey Hong Zhuang was at her line of sight, smiling deeply at Di Beichen, blinking, and Han Shiling's eyes revealed more hatred and jealousy. Suddenly, Bailey Hong Zhuang's gaze fell onto the statue. On the woman's slightly raised hand, she found that there seemed to be something placed. Bailey Hong Zhuang glanced at Di Beichen meaningfully, as his figure flickered and he directly jumped into the air. This look was enough for Bailey Hong Zhuang to affirm her own discovery, because the slightly raised place in the woman's hand was obviously deliberate. At the same time, Di Beichen came to the statue of the man, and there seemed to be similar place on the man's sculpture as well. Everyone saw that Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Beichen suddenly jumped into the air, but they did not know what these two people wanted to do, and could not help but be confused. Bailey Hong Zhuang did not hesitate to press on the raised mechanism on the woman's palm, and a slightly thunderous sound proved her speculations. Di Beichen's speed was not slow. He moved a little, and the same sound came. No way. The organ was on the hands of the sculptures? My God, how could we not notice such a conspicuous position? Chapter 558 appears. Mysterious Aperture Han Shiling and Yin Lingxian were also stunned at this moment. They had previously ridiculed Bailey Hong Zhuang and dismissed the sculptures as being useless. The next moment, Bailey Hong Zhuang had found the mechanism on the sculpture. This really made them lose face. After Bailey Hong Zhuang landed back on the ground, she found that although there was a sound when she had pressed the mechanism, there were no changes in the whole main hall. This was too strange. However, just as Bailey Hong Zhuang was thinking this, Xia Zhiqing's exclamation sounded. Hong Zhuang, you have an aperture under your feet. Hearing this, Bailey Hong Zhuang looked down at her feet and found a circular red aperture under them. On the aperture, a complex and mysterious totem was drawn, which constantly rotated under her feet. It looked beautiful. Not only that, but looking carefully at the totem in the aperture gave people a sense of shock, as if there was some mysterious power sealed in it. At a glance, everyone could discover the extraordinariness of the aperture. What does this aperture mean? Bailey Hong Zhuang's eyebrows furrowed. She had never seen a similar aperture, and she did not understand what it meant. As soon as her line of sight shifted, Bailey Hong Zhuang discovered that there was a similar aperture under Di Beichen's feet, but the color of this aperture was not the same as hers. The golden aperture whirled beneath Di Beichen's feet, exuding a mysterious and powerful power. Wow, the luck of these two is too good. Zhang Yinfeng's face was full of emotions. Previously, Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Beichen had gotten a lot of Yuan Liguo in the stone room, which was already enviable. But it still wasn't the same as getting the final inheritance of this monument. It's like this, so the search for the final inheritance had nothing to with the swords. Gong Shaoqing's voice was heavy, but his eyes flashed with a tinge of enlightenment. Next, a cultivator of Jijia also jumped above onto the sculptures. The same sound of the mechanism opening sounded, and then a similar golden aperture appeared beneath his feet. Hey, even we can touch this mechanism. After seeing this, everyone's joy showed on their faces. They thought that this inheritance belonged to Di Beichen and Bailey Hong Zhuang. Now it seemed that they still have hope. Then all the cultivators started touching the mechanism. Sure enough, as everyone expected, after touching the mechanism, there appeared one aperture after the other. After careful inspection, everyone found that the aperture under the men's feet was golden, and the aperture under the women's feet was red. Han Xiling and Yin Lingxian also touched the mechanism. However, there was no sound even after they touched it. Even the aperture did not appear under the feet of the two. Seeing this scene, everyone's eyes fell on those two, and they did not understand why they were an exception. Han Xiling and Yin Lingxian were also astonished. They didn't understand why they were different. What is this all about? Yin Lingxian was full of anger and immediately touched the mechanism, but no matter how he touched it, the mechanism did not move at all. Han Xiling also tried again, but the result was basically the same as Yin Lingxian. It won't. Is it that this inheritance is for both of you? Chapter 559 goes against the normal routine. Lin Yirou's expression was a bit strange, the aperture that appeared under so many people's feet, but did not for Han Xiling and Yin Lingxian. This was too strange. It's hard to think. The monument's master was going against the normal routine? Listening to Lin Yirou's conjecture, the look of the people changed slightly. Lin Yirou's guess was not without reason. After all, the strength and talent of Han Xiling and Yin Lingxian was well known. They would definitely not be excluded by the master. Perhaps it was really as Lin Yirou said, and these two were the true inheritors. The thoughts of the master of this monument are really different. No aperture, but with the talent of them both, this should be the affirmation of the monument's master. Ji Yin'er looked at Han Xiling and Yin Lingxian unwillingly. For these two people, she did not have the slightest affection. On the contrary, she only hoped that the two of them would not have good ends. Now, the inheritance belonged to the two of them. Then, after this expedition, their strength would certainly surpass hers. Until now, she was not that afraid of finding Han Xiling for trouble. Now, she was afraid that she would have to walk around when she saw them. Lin Yirou's face was also ugly. She preferred this inheritance going to other people, but she absolutely did not want it to be obtained by Han Xiling, seeing everyone agreeing with this inference. Han Xiling and Yin Lingxian's faces also showed a happy smile. The inheritance of the monument's master. When they thought of this, their hearts was full of unspeakable excitement. This feeling was no different than a pie falling from the heavens. After obtaining this inheritance, their strength can be improved again. The master of this monument really doesn't have eyes. They even picked these two annoying guys. Xia Zhiqing snorted and her eyes sparkled with annoyance. Hong Zhuang and Dibei Chun are much better than these two. This is a waste. Listening to Xia Zhiqing's rant, Bai Junyu agreed with a nod. I also think it is a pity. Master, this shouldn't be true. Xiao Hei's eyes widened. This result was too unacceptable. If the inheritor really is them, then the monument's master really is blind. Xiao Bai was speechless for a while. He too found it unacceptable. Bailey Hong Zhuang's expression was also a bit complicated. Although everyone's analysis was quite reasonable, she always felt that the situation was somewhat wrong. She was not sure what it was, though. When her line of sight shifted, Bailey Hong Zhuang found that Dibei Chun appeared to be thinking. She couldn't help but ask, "What did you find?" "Nyangzi, this aperture is very similar to what I once heard from Master." Bailey Hong Zhuang's eyes shone brightly. Dibei Chen's master was Tian Gangzong's sovereign. He obviously knew a lot. What? The light of inheritance. Bailey Hong Zhuang's brows slightly lifted. This thing she was hearing for the first time? It must be something that happened after her death. I have heard from Master that he saw this thing in a monument, but it was somewhat different from the situation in front of us. Dibei Chun was hesitant. He was almost certain that this aperture was the light of inheritance, but now with these exceptions, he was not sure. What's the difference? Bailey Hong Zhuang asked. Chapter 560 are shocked. The statue speaks. The light of inheritance will appear beneath the foot of every cultivator who entered the monument. The master of the monument will check the talent and potential of the cultivators through the light of inheritance, and then reevaluate them. Only, the situation of Shi Ling and Yinling Xian is somewhat special. Dibei Chun felt a bit hesitant. This aperture was very similar to what Master had described. Could it be this was not the light of inheritance? Bailey Hong Zhuang was also silent. This was the first time she had seen such a thing, and it was impossible to make a correct judgment. The two people, Han Shi Ling and Yinling Xian, were secretly happy. She too had seen this thing for the first time. Suddenly, a low and deep voice echoed in the main hall. Those who are disrespectful are not qualified to receive the inheritance. Hearing this voice, the faces of all the people present became sallow. Because this voice seemed to be speaking right in front of their ears, very clearly, it had a shocking effect. Just a simple sentence, and everyone could feel the powerful and terrifying strength of the other. It could completely kill anyone who was present. For the first time, people felt such a sense of oppression from just a voice. Well, who was the speaker? Lu Huayan's face flashed with amazement. Such strength. It was simply daunting. The eyes of all the people were constantly looking around the hall. They all wanted to know who it was. In the end, everyone's eyes stopped on the man's sculpture because no one other than him could have such strength. Next, in front of everyone's shocked or horrified eyes, the sculpture that had remained motionless actually moved. Moved. Everyone was frozen on the spot. They couldn't believe the scene before them. This ruin had been buried underground for so many years. Isn't it that the owner of the monument is already dead? How can it still move? Bailey Hong Zhuang was also slightly shocked. She was used to listening to her family's elders. Some strong people could leave their spiritual strength behind, even after dying, to instruct those of the future generations. However, these spirits are nothing but the remnants of the fallen and the strong and do not have any aggressiveness. Maybe the situation in front of her was really like what she thinks. My God, is it that my eyes have been blinded? A young cultivator from Tiangang, Zong, squinted his eyes at this scene. He only felt that he was dreaming and couldn't discern if what was before him was true. It shouldn't be. Otherwise, is it that the two of us have been blinded together? The friend beside him slowly said, his expression not much better either. Previously, the inheritance on the monument had been too tempting. Now they only think they have encountered a ghost and can't wait to escape. Indeed, I don't really like impolite people. I want them to leave. After the man's sculpture spoke, the sculpture of the woman beside him also spoke up, her every gesture full of charm and life. Chinger, what do you say? The man smiled at the woman as she smiled back. When he looked at Han Shi Ling and Yinling Xian again, his eyes were already frosty. At that moment, everyone felt foolish. It turned out that Han Ling and Yin Xian did not have an aperture beneath their feet because the masters of the monument resented them. And then they had such a result. This sudden change was beyond the expectations of the people. The envious eyes they cast at Han Ling and Yin Xian had quietly turned to disdain and ridicule. Chapter 561 Strike, the Master of the Monument. The situation has changed too fast. They must really find it unacceptable. Lenny Rowe chuckled. Han Ling had always been proud. Now that she was not qualified to accept the inheritance, because of this reason, she found it really interesting. The masters of this monument have such a personality. Who could have guessed this reason? Cui Haoyin shrugged his shoulders, feeling helpless, but his mouth couldn't help but curve up. He knew the gap between himself and those of cultivating families, so he did not want to have the slightest conflicting with these families, but he did not have a good impression of Han Ling and Yin Xian. Haha, this is so funny. Xia Zhiqing couldn't help but laugh out loud. If she didn't care about the masters before her, she really would have wanted to laugh louder. Could this situation be any funnier? Han Ling always had a high-above-you attitude. Wherever she went, there was a feeling of her being unignorable. She was like a peacock that spread open its train, attracting everyone's attention. However, she would now be driven out of the monument for her impoliteness and arrogance. This would be a big stain on Han Ling's reputation. This time she was really curious to see how Han Ling would continue to stay calm. Bailey Hong Zhuang also found it a bit amusing, and this sudden scene was also beyond her expectations. For the time, she only thought that Han Ling and Yin Xian were unlucky. If Han Ling hadn't come to look for trouble, she wouldn't have said disrespectful words about the master. However, everything that Han Ling had previously ridiculed had faded away. The statue spoke up. The master of the monument had not completely disappeared. The two people who had ridiculed her were now being driven out of the monument for it. Even she was smirking a little bit. Han Ling looked at Bailey Hong Zhuang with anger, and at this moment, she couldn't keep up her previous cold and calm expression. She had lived for so many years and had never been so embarrassed. She even suspected that Bailey Hong Zhuang had already guessed all of this already, so she deliberately set up a trap for her. However, just as this thought spawned, it was dispelled by Han Ling. If Bailey Hong Zhuang could really guess to such extent, then Bailey Hong Zhuang was too powerful. Faced with Han Ling's rage, Bailey Hong Zhuang shrugged innocently. This she really hadn't planned it. Yin Xian's face was also ugly to the extreme. He had obviously come for the inheritance. Now, even the chance to test for it had not been given. He was directly driven away. He felt he had lost a lot of face. Get out, the master of the monument whispered. Predecessor, Yin Xian was unwilling, and he was prepared to explain things to the master of the monument to seek an opportunity for himself. The masters of the monument only looked at Yin Xian and Han Ling impatiently, and then he waved with one hand, and everyone only felt a gust of whistling wind. The figures of Han Ling and Yin Xian had already disappeared from before their eyes. When they saw this, everyone was stunned, and their eyes widened. This was a master of a monument. Just a random wave, and people had completely disappeared. This was a power. The cultivators present at the scene couldn't help but wallow their spit, and their fear of the masters of the monument reached a new high. In the face of such strength, they had no ability to resist, even a little. Bei Chen looked at the place Han Ling had disappeared, and there was some concern in his eyes. In any case, Han Ling was the younger sister who grew up with him. Chapter 562 Tentative. Bei Chen. After a few moments, Bailey Hong Zhuang saw the look on Bei Chen's face, a smile ghosting on her lips. Don't worry, isn't the master of the monument just saying them to get out? Bei Chen listened to Bailey Hong Zhuang's words, and there was some hesitation and worry in his eyes until he was sure that Bailey Hong Zhuang was not angry. Nyangzi, I am just... Bailey Hong Zhuang slightly raised her right hand and took the lead. You don't have to explain, I understand. She understood the complexity of Di Bei Chen's thoughts at this moment. So far, between her and Han Xiling, Di Bei Chen had always stood on her side. This had already proven the standing between her and Han Xiling in Di Bei Chen's eyes. Only when Han Xiling was driven out did Di Bei Chen show a hint of worry. He was undoubtedly worried about Han Xiling getting hurt or dying. This was also very normal. If Di Bei Chen did not react at all, it would be really strange. After all, Han Xiling had known him for many years and helped him when he was in trouble. As long as it was a person with the slightest empathy and righteousness, it was impossible for them to have no worries. Seeing Bailey Hong Zhuang so understanding, Di Bei Chen was also relieved. In this situation, he had no better way to deal with it. Suddenly, Bailey Hong Zhuang's phoenix eyes slightly narrowed, and her voice seemed to be tempting. If one day, your Xiling Shimi wants to kill me, what will you do? She understood Di Bei Chen's concern, but also wanted to know what Di Bei Chen would decide if it came to either of their deaths. Han Xiling's skill at disguising was good. She hadn't seen her true face a single time in front of Di Bei Chen. After all, a woman would always disguise herself as perfect in front of the one she loved. However, with the confrontation between her and Han Xiling, there really may come a day when either of them would die. Nyangzi, there won't be such a day. Bailey Hong Zhuang's gaze seemed to bore a hole through Bailey Hong Zhuang, his expression serious and dignified. So, you can't conclude your decision if such a thing happened? Bailey Hong Zhuang asked, the expression in her deep eyes changing, revealing an unknown emotion. When her voice fell, Bailey Hong Zhuang no longer wanted to look at Di Bei Chen. Perhaps short-term acquaintances were really not as good as a person one had known for years. If there is such a day, I will always stand on the side of my wifey. Di Bei Chen slowly uttered these words, and his tone was firm and determined. This answer was absolutely firm, from his heart from beginning to end. The reason why he paused for a moment was that he felt that such a situation would not happen. But if it did happen, he would not hesitate. Bailey Hong Zhuang, who had been unprepared for these words, quietly glanced at Di Bei Chen after hearing them. After seeing the resolute look on his face, some of the unpleasantness in her heart also quietly disappeared. Until such a situation happens, it is not something I would like to see either. Bailey Hong Zhuang's voice was mild. If Han Xiling was clever, she would not blow this up into a situation that could only end in pain. But if Han Xiling didn't know how to be good, she, BHC, would definitely put her to her death. She won't sit still. The reason for her words now was only to let Di Bei Chen be psychologically prepared in advance. Fortunately, Di Bei Chen's answer had not disappointed her. After Han Xiling disappeared from her field of vision, the eyes of the gathered people were again on the two sculptures. Chapter 563, The Master of the Monument, Nie Xiao Feng. Even till now, everyone still felt some disbelief at the sculptures. If this kind of ridiculous thing was not seen by one's own eyes, no one would believe it if someone else said it. I have seen the two seniors. Although she felt that she had lived before these two, since she had already crossed over, she also accepted her identity as the younger generation. Otherwise, if she were to call the juniors instead, others would think her to be mad. Seeing Bailey Hong Zhuang's actions, the other cultivators also paid obeisance, and their faces were filled with a respectful expression. Previously, Han Xiling had already served as an example. Now, were they date to be disrespectful? Do you still think that the dead know nothing? Do they still have the ability to try to disrespectful in front of the monument's master? This girl is very filial. I like it. Bai Qing smiled. Everyone saw that the monument's mistress directly praised Bailey Hong Zhuang, and different emotions flashed across their eyes. Ji Yin'er regretted not paying obeisance. She knew that in such a situation, she must respect the master of the monument. Otherwise, would Bailey Hong Zhuang be praised now? Ji Yin'er squinted and glanced at Bailey Hong Zhuang. Since this woman appeared, she felt that something was wrong. If it was changed to other times, who could steal the limelight of their families? But now it seemed that whatever they do is wrong, and what was done by Bailey Hongzhuang was right. It was really depressing. The master also nodded slightly and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. He also praised her more. No wonder my wife liked you. And Luli is also in your hands. Bai Qing's face was warm and clear. Her smile gentle and limpid, making people feel only calm and pleasant. Everyone's heart felt like it was burning. The monument's mistress had so straightforwardly said that she liked Bailey Hongzhuang. Wouldn't the inheritance now fall into Bailey Hongzhuang's hands? Thank you, seniors, for your praise, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. Her beautiful face had a smile as if she was not overly excited by the master's praise. After experiencing too many things, she clearly knows that no one could decide the outcome until the last moment. Just like Han Xiling and Yinling Xian, when they first entered the monument, who would have thought that they would have left the monument without anything? Since you young people have come to the monument of Nie Xiao Feng, they must be young talents, dragons, and phoenixes among people. Nie Xiao Gung's lips rose, and his eyebrows arched with confidence and arrogance. The brilliance in his moves showed his strength and power. The heads of the people drooped, facing this arrogance. This confidence they could only admire. Bai Qing looked at Nie Xiao Feng, her gaze filled with admiration. It was obvious that the two were deeply affectionate. There's not much to say. Everyone here has come for the inheritance of me and Qing. There are 2 inheritances in total. If you can get an inheritance, you have to rely on your own skills. Nie Xiao Feng's words were determined. The pressure of the words exerted a force on everyone. Always, there was only one person who could have the inheritance. They hadn't thought that there would be 2 masters of this monument. Now the chances of them getting the inheritance would be much higher. Next, Nie Xiao Feng waved his hand, and the apertures under the people swirled around. Chapter 564 was selected. Wifey, according to my master, this light of inheritance will examine the roots of each person, and thus select talented cultivators. After seeing the change in the aperture, Bei Chun couldn't help but explain it to Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, and she could feel a gentle and strange force slowly entering her body after the aperture started spinning. If she guessed it correctly, this force must be what would evaluate her talent. About her own talent, Bailey Hongzhuang understood it very well. Although she was called a waste person in the past, her talent had never been bad since her dantian healed. After the glowing aperture spun for a while, everyone found that the aperture under their feet had changed differently. The same aperture had now begun to show different shades from light to dark. The people were surprised to find that the apertures under the feet of some cultivators were very bright, while the apertures under the feet of other cultivators were very dull. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the aperture under her feet, and the originally red color became more and more bright, and the complex patterns became even more beautiful at the moment. Not only that, she noticed that the apertures under the feet of 2 other people were also the same as hers, respectively, Lin Yirou and Xia Zhiqing. Xia Zhiqing went to Bailey Hongzhuang's side after seeing the shade of the aperture under her feet was the same as Bailey Hongzhuang's. Hongzhuang, we are exactly the same. I don't know what the change in the aperture means, though. Xia Zhiqing's eyes sparkled with curiosity. For everything that was happening, she felt it was as unreal as touching clouds in the sky, and she did not understand what the monument's masters thought with doing this. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged slightly. Although she knew the role of this aperture from Bei Chen's explanation, she did not understand the criteria for the inheritance. Zhiqing, you will know soon. On the other hand, the apertures under the feet of men also showed different levels of shades. The apertures under the feet of Bei Chun, Gong Shaoqing, and Dongfang were the brightest, and the degree of dullness or brightness of others was quite varied. After seeing this scene, everyone's eyes were looking at Nie Xiao Feng and Bai Qing. They didn't know what the final result was. Bai Qing's gaze fell on a Bailey Hongzhuang, Lin Yirou, and Xia Zhiqing. Her outstanding appearance softened as she smiled brightly. It seems that you are fated to be close to me. This inheritance depends on the three people who are the most talented. When these words were said, the expressions of the cultivators present at the moment changed. If it was this way, the one with the brightest aperture was the most talented person. Not only was Lin Yiro chosen, but it was hard to bear that the talent of Ji Yuner was not even comparable to Bailey Hong Zhuang and Xia Qing. Ji Yuner's face was ugly to the extreme. She had never felt that she would lose to anyone. However, it was a joke now that her so-called talent had lost to two unknown people. This is absolutely impossible, Ji Yuner helplessly mumbled. As long as this was known to others, she would always be beneath Han. Han Xiling was now said to be one of the most talented in the younger generation, so such comparisons were inevitable. But to lose to two people who were unknown was really unbearable. As a cultivator, she felt that her pride had been lost. You are the best among the younger generation. I will only choose cultivators who are the most suitable for my inheritance. Chapter 565 Shocked. Sanglan College by Qing's voice was light and airy, and her gentle words were unlike Nie Xiao Feng's chilly ones. Her words were like a breeze and made people feel calm. When they heard Bai Qing's explanation, everyone let go of some of their bitterness, and even Ji Yuner's face became slightly better. If it was said that she was not suitable to accept an inheritance, she could understand, but if it was said that her cultivation talent was not good enough, then she found it unacceptable. After all, Gong Xiaoqing and Dong Fangyu were just students of Kinlan College. Although the college had always been famous, it was not comparable to the status of a cultivation family's younger generation. They could go all the way today, but in the future, they wouldn't be a famous cultivator in the continent. The things that could be taught in a college were limited. Xia Qing's face gave away her joy. She thought that this time she was just fortunate enough to enter a monument. She did not expect that she had a chance to get this final inheritance, which was beyond her expectations. An inheritance, this is what many cultivators dreamed of. At the thought of this, Xia Qing was excited enough to jump in joy. Lin Yiro had always been placid, but at this moment, she couldn't help but smile. Getting this inheritance was also beyond her expectations. And no matter what, after she obtained the inheritance, at least, she had crushed Ji Yuner and others on this expedition to the monument. After this news was spread around, she had undoubtedly raised the standing of her own family. Not only that, but her position in the family would also be improved. This was a great thing. After seeing how things turned out, even Gong Xiaoqing and Dong Fangyu paused a moment. Since they had seen the people from the cultivation families, they had not held many hopes. Although the two of them believed that their cultivation talent was good enough, they also knew the gap between them and those younger generation. Therefore, they did not hold too many expectations for this final inheritance. They never thought that such a fortune would fall over their head. For a time, even they themselves could not believe it. Liu Huayan and Fu Hongbo's faces showed a happy expression. Although they did not have an opportunity to accept this inheritance, their students could get it, which was enough to make them happy. The two of them were not young, and their potential could naturally not be compared to the younger generation's people like Bailey Hongzhuang. Therefore, the two of them had never even thought of getting the inheritance. Now, only Lin Yiro had the opportunity to get the inheritance from the 4 cultivation families who came. The other 5 chosen were all from their college. Once this news spread, what kind of glory awaited their college? You have really worked hard. Liu Huayan patted Gong Xiaoqing's shoulder, and his face was filled with gratification. After they returned to the college, he and Fu Hongbo would have considerable bragging material. Gong Xiaoqing and the others nodded. These 2 teachers had helped them a lot, and in their heart, they felt very grateful. When did the students of a college get so talented? The cultivation talent of a college's student had always been above common people, but this achievement is really surprising. It seems that this time the college is going to be really famous. Everyone felt a lot of different emotions, and there was bitterness in their hearts. This was such a good opportunity, but they had lost it. Chapter 566 Great Minds Think Alike. Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Bei Chun looked at each other with a faint smile. Other people can leave. Nie Xiaofeng's voice was cold. Not even waiting for everyone to speak, his hand waved, and everyone felt a strong wind blowing, as a force wrapped around them. They could not control their bodies as they were directly sent outside. Xia Zhiqing and the other people saw that the other cultivators had disappeared from the main hall in an instant, and even the main hall door was closed, and their eyes once again showed a faint agitation. Previously, only Han Xiling and Yinling Xian had disappeared, so it was still a little better. Now it was shocking to see such a large group of people being sent away with just a wave of the hand. After Han Xiling and Yinling Xian were sent out of the monument, they stood in front of it. This was the second time they were standing in front of the monument, but the feeling was completely different from before. They had been humiliated so publicly, and they were even told off for their impoliteness in front of everyone. It was really shameful. They lost a lot of face. Once this news spread, they were afraid that they wouldn't be able to see anyone for a while. Yinling Xian's face was extremely ugly. After thinking about it for a while, he couldn't help but say, Han Gunyang, I don't know if you're going to go back to Tiangang's zone or wait here. Now, they had completely lost the chance to get the inheritance. They had been pretty confident when they left for here. They only thought that this inheritance would definitely fall into their hands. Who could think that they had not only not gotten the inheritance, but even had no chance to compete for it? Han Xiling's face was cold and indifferent, and in her heart, she was even more furious. It was nothing to lose face in front of others, but she actually lost face in front of D-Dage. All of this was because of Bailey Hong Zhuang. I'll stay here. Han Xiling's eyes became sharper. How could she leave before the result was confirmed? Since she had been labeled as impolite, then she would like to see if this inheritance could really become Bailey Hong Zhuang's, the one who knew to be polite and filial. Han Gunyang wants to know who will get the inheritance. Yinling Xian noticed the change in Han Xiling's expression and couldn't help but ask. Han Xiling looked at Yinling Xian with cold eyes and asked, You are not curious? Yinling Xian smiled. I don't know who will be the heir to the final inheritance. I only know that this inheritance will never fall into the hands of that Bailey Hong Zhuang. His words showed Yinling Xian's confidence and determination. There were many cultivators present, and their talents were more incredible, and they were more powerful than Bailey Hong Zhuang. Even if Bailey Hong Zhuang knew how to be polite, he did not believe that the master of the monument would choose Bailey Hong Zhuang as the inheritor just because of Bailey Hong Zhuang's pretty words. After all, to such a powerful person, the most important thing was talent and potential. Listening to Yinling Xian's words, Han Xiling's face became slightly better. Great minds think alike. The next moment, Han Xiling found a place to sit down. Now that they had come very close to the final inheritance, she believed that they would not have to wait here for too long. She only needed to cultivate here for some time, and they would come out. However, just as Han Xiling was preparing to close her eyes and cultivate, she only felt a familiar wind flowing through, and there appeared a lot of cultivators in front of her eyes. Seeing this, Han Xiling couldn't help but stand up, looking for a moment in the crowd, but found that she could not find the figures of Di Bei Chun and Bailey Hong Zhuang, and her heart couldn't help but have some doubts. Chapter 567 Collapses. Yinling Xian, why don't I see D-Dage? Han Xiling whispered to herself, and there was doubt and confusion in her mind. Yinling Xian directly went to Yin family's cultivators and asked, Who got the inheritance? Right now, this was his most concerning issue. No matter which cultivator it was passed down to, he will face them in the future, so the cultivator needed to be more careful. Young master, a total of 6 people stayed back in the monument. A Yin cultivator replied back loudly. In addition to Di Bei Chun and Linny Ro, the other 4 were cultivators from Songlan College. After hearing this result, Yinling Xian quietly breathed a sigh of relief. What he was most worried about was that the inheritance would fall into the hands of a cultivator from another family. As a result, they would have been able to increase their power, disturbing the equilibrium of their strengths, which was divided equally. For this, he was naturally unwilling. Lin Yiruo. Yin Xian's eyebrows slowly rose. Lin Yiruo's performance on this expedition was completely different from the past. He hadn't expected the inheritance to be passed down to her. The good news was the only person chosen was Lin Yiruo, and Ji Yun'er and Huang Fuhui had not been selected. He was not concerned about Di Bei-chun, because Di Bei-chun's strength was stronger than him. Since he was already a lot stronger, it did not matter. As for the cultivators of the college, he did not have to worry about them. He and the cultivators of the college could not be compared, and there won't be much problem in the future. Their strength or weakness had nothing to do with him. However, the next moment, Yin Lingxian's brows nodded. Bailey Hong Zhuang seemed to be a cultivator from the college. Which 4 cultivators were chosen from that college? Young master, this. I don't know their names. The people who were asked were embarrassed. They had never had any intersections with people who cultivated in a college, and naturally they will not know their names. On seeing this, Yin Lingxian's eyes became darker. So is that Bailey Hong Zhuang still inside? Bailey Hong Zhuang is inside. Yin family's cultivator nodded. The mistress of the monument seemed to like Bailey Hong Zhuang very much. Hearing this, Yin Lingxian's face became ugly. He had thought that the inheritance wouldn't be passed down to Bailey Hong Zhuang. He didn't expect that she would not only get it, but also be favored. How had this happened? He just couldn't understand. It hadn't mattered what Bailey Hong Zhuang did because he thought she was a vase. He had been extremely sure that the inheritance could never be won by Bailey Hong Zhuang. The heir of inheritance was carefully chosen, and Bailey Hong Zhuang should not have been chosen. It was hard to imagine where Di Bei-chun found Bailey Hong Zhuang from when he left. If she continued to develop like this, the future Bailey Hong Zhuang would be a thorn whenever he saw her. Ji Yun'er slowly walked to Han Shiling's side, and her pretty face showed sarcasm. Han Shiling, you think that Bailey Hong Zhuang is not your opponent, but I don't think so. The smile on Ji Yun'er's face gradually became wider. You were kicked out of the monument, but still show such a proud look. Bailey Hong Zhuang even obtained the inheritance. I feel that she and Di Bei-chun's loving expression is very suitable. Ji Yun'er now understood that all of Di Bei-chun's thoughts were on Bailey Hong Zhuang. She naturally did not have to say that Han Shiling's importance was not worth as much as Bailey Hong Zhuang's in Di Bei-chun's eyes. Chapter 568 Sarcasm. Ji Yun'er all along. Ji Yun'er had thoughts for Di Bei-chun. Firstly, because of Di Bei-chun's strength and status, and secondly, because of how extremely handsome Di Bei-chun was. No matter from which angle, Di Bei-chun was perfect, and in many women's minds he was the best man. If she could marry Di Bei-chun, then her identity would rise and become excellent. Today, she understood that there was no possibility between her and Di Bei-chun. Instead of pining for him, it was better to directly give up. After all, men who were as good as Di Bei-chun were not many, but there were still other good men. She wouldn't be able to do anything if she kept pursuing this infatuation. However, Han Shiling, she had not liked Han Shiling since before. She hated Han Shiling's cold temperament and arrogant attitude. Men's eyes seemed to turn to beads when they looked at her. Originally, Han Shiling actually wanted her to deal with Bailey Hong Zhuang. This Han Shiling was actually looking down on her. Since she had given up on Di Bei-chun now, I would be better to take this opportunity to dig a pit for Han Shiling. She would like to see if Han Shiling could still maintain her proud temper after. With Ji Yun'er's voice falling, Han Shiling looked at her coldly, her gaze looking colder each second. Whether they are suitable or not, it doesn't have anything to do with you. Her cold voice calm and proud, and Han Shiling's posture was still the same, but deep inside, she felt like someone had wounded her. The masters of this monument was a couple, and now they had allowed Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Bei-chun to remain in the monument, but she had been driven out. This was tantamount to saying that she was an unrelated third party and should be abandoned. Ji Yun'er's eyebrows rose, and she shrugged. Then laughing, she said, "It has nothing to do with me. I just feel it's a bit funny." Han Ling, who is always proud of herself, now can't even keep the man she loves. Can't even see that you shouldn't long for things that aren't yours. In my opinion, Bailey Hong Zhuang can't be worse than you. At least in grasping a man's heart, you have completely lost. Ji Yun'er said these in a mocking tone, not caring at all how her remarks made Han Ling's face uglier. She turned and walked back to her family's ranks to go back home. Over the years, Han Ling's arrogant temper had hurt her a lot. Just because her strength was not as good as Han Ling, she had been crushed. Now that Han Ling didn't give her even a little face, she doesn't mind ridiculing her. At least, she was happy. After giving up on Di Beichan, she only thought that she hated her previous hypocrisy and liked Bailey Hong Zhuang a lot better than that arrogant Han Ling. Perhaps this facade she put up will be completely taken off one day. The expedition has ended. Let's go back. Ji Yun'er waved happily, leaving the forest with their team. Continuing to stay here had no meaning. Han Ling looked at Ji Yun'er's back. Her eyes flashed with sharp murderousness. However, this Bailey Hong Zhuang was really not a simple character. Huang Fu family's team also did not delay. While they left with Ji Yun'er and her team, the Lin family's team found a place to rest. They were waiting for Lin Yiro to come out. Yin Xian's face was still ugly, thinking back to how he had declared so surely that Bailey Hong Zhuang would not get the inheritance, and now he felt like it had been severely hit on his face. But, seeing that he finally had an opportunity to talk more with Han Ling, he couldn't leave directly because of this. Chapter 569 Graceful by Qing Han Gunyang. Except for cultivators who got the inheritance, everyone else has already come out. Are you still going to stay here? Yinling Xian looked at Han Ling's expression and asked tentatively. Han Ling's face a little gloomy. In the end, the result was one that she had been least willing to see. Seeing Han Ling did not speak, Yinling Xian followed. If Han Gunyang is also ready to leave, isn't it better if we go together? Hearing this, Han Ling looked at Yinling Xian indifferently, and in the same tone said, "You go first, I want to wait for D-Dage to come back." Yinling Xian's expression was a bit stiff. He hadn't thought that even at this moment, Han Ling would still stubbornly choose to wait for Di Bei-chun to come out. Since Han Gunyang wants to continue to wait here, then I will go back first. Yinling Xian's eyes flashed with complex emotion. It would have been an excellent thing if he could be with Han Ling at this time. But he needed to go back and report everything to his family. If he had performed extremely well in this monument, he could still do things his own way. However, he did not have the least bit of gain on this expedition. He had turned into a joke in front of everyone's eyes. If he didn't go back, he was afraid that the family elders would be furious. Han Ling nodded, and Yinling Xian gazed at Han Ling deeply, and there was a bit of reluctance in his eyes. He turned his head and left the miasma forest together with Yin family's team. Bailey Hong Zhuang found that she was in a peach forest just like Jingli Garden. Peach blossoms filled the whole sky, fragrance everywhere. A cool breeze brushed past, and petals floated down, the insipid pink turning the world into a dreamland. Almost at the very first moment she saw the scene in front of her, Bailey Hong Zhuang realized that she was once again in an illusion. It seemed that the masters of this monument were really proficient in the way of illusions. Suddenly, a piece of music sounded, and the pleasant sound seemed to be calling for Bailey Hong Zhuang. Bailey Hong Zhuang couldn't help but walk to the depths of the peach forest to find the source of this sound. So far, she still hadn't understood how this illusion would test her. She could only take one step at a time now. As she gradually entered the depths of the peach forest, Bailey Hong Zhuang found a delicate pavilion in the middle of the forest. Between the swirling pink petals, she could see vaguely a graceful and charming figure. 3,000 black silk strands poured down her shoulder like a waterfall, and the pink and red dress covered the ground around her. The sound of the guqin poured from beneath her two hands, creating a beautiful melody. Just looking at the dusty view from behind, even if it was Bailey Hong Zhuang, for this woman she couldn't help but admire. Just looking at the back view, she could conclude that this woman was one with peerless elegance. Bailey Hong Zhuang slowly went forward, performed obeisance, and said, "I have troubled and disturbed Mississippi." The music gradually stopped, and a woman sitting before her slowly stood up, and a glamorous and familiar face appeared before Bailey Hong Zhuang's sight. This person was the mistress of the monument, Bai Qing. It turned out to be predecessor. Bailey Hong Zhuang once again gave obeisance, and there was a little praise in Bai Qing's eyes. As she had guessed, the mistress of the monument was graceful and charming. The corners of Bai Qing's lips spread into a gentle smile, and she looked carefully at Bailey Hong Zhuang. "I, Bai Qing, have seen many women in my life. The world has praised me for being outstanding. In my opinion, you're the real one who can ruin and overtake cities." Chapter 570 to learn. The Four Arts. Bai Qing's face had a stunned expression, but it was without the slightest bit of envy. The very first time she had seen Bailey Hong Zhuang, she could not ignore her beauty, because such a beautiful person, she had really seen it for the first time. "Senior praises me too much. You're also a first-class beauty." Bailey Hong Zhuang's lips had a faint smile. There were many beautiful people in the world, but a temperamental beauty like Bai Qing was rare. Her body seemed to be filled with an unspeakable charm. Usually, even beauty would lack affinity. Therefore, Bai Qing's temperament and her beauty really drew her in. Listening to Bailey Hong Zhuang's words, Bai Qing's smile widened a bit. "Looks outstanding, talent is also very good, and there is humbleness that I don't see in many young cultivators. You are really good." Bailey Hong Zhuang's face had a smile, but there was still some doubt in her mind. She didn't know how Bai Qing intended to test her. The next moment, Bai Qing looked a bit more serious and said, "Have you mastered the Four Arts?" Bailey Hong Zhuang felt awkward. When it came to cultivation and medical skills, she was quite good, but for the Four Arts, she really had no understanding of them. Since she was a child, she had put all her energy into cultivation. Although the Four Arts, zither, go, painting, and calligraphy, also had a certain weight, and the females of her family had studied them. However, she had been identified as the successor to the patriarch since early, so she did not have time to get in touch with these. The identity of being the former young miss of a general should have made her quite involved in these, but her identity as a waste person had caused her to be left out. Even her stomach had not been filled properly, let alone teaching her the Four Arts. Looking at the change in Bailey Hong Zhuang's expression, Bai Qing couldn't help but ask no. There was a little helplessness in Bailey Hong Zhuang's face, but she still calmly admitted, "To tell you the truth, I have no understanding of these." Although she did not understand the relationship of the Four Arts with the inheritance, she also knew that this was the test of Bai Qing. In these things, she was afraid that she couldn't do well at all. Bai Qing had a strange expression, but she quickly returned to normal. "In this case, my inheritance may be a bit difficult for you." Bai Qing smiled lightly. "What do you think of my guzheng?" "Naturally, it is excellent." Bailey Hong Zhuang sighed. Although she did not understand these well, she still had the most basic understanding of what to appreciate. "In that case, do you have the confidence to reach my level?" When Bai Qing's voice fell, Bailey Hong Zhuang paused, but her heart was full of thoughts. Generally speaking, cultivation and guzheng playing was not at all close to each other. Even if Bai Qing could play beautifully, this won't be regarded as a standard of assessment. In this way, there is only one possibility, that is that Bai Qing's strength has a certain connection with guzheng playing. Bailey Hong Zhuang's heart had this faint conjecture. Next, Bailey Hong Zhuang's eyes turned sharp, and her beautiful face was filled with confidence and firmness. Yes, although she has never learned these, she believed that she just needed to learn it seriously and she would not fail. Seeing Bailey Hong Zhuang so confident, the smile in Bai Qing's eyes deepened. "So let's get started." Since then, there had been two beautiful women sitting in the pavilion. The sound of guzheng notes poured from the pavilion and wandered through the entire peach forest. Chapter 571, Accomplished Learning. killing with sound, while Bailey Hong Zhuang began to learn. Lin Yirou and Xia Zhiqing also accepted the teachings of Bai Qing in another illusion. However, the content learned by the three people was different, but everyone worked hard to follow Bai Qing's instructions, striving to succeed Bai Qing's teachings. On the other side, Di Bei Chun, Gong Shaoqing, and Dong Fangyu also accepted the teachings of Nie Xiao Feng in different illusions. Compared to the wonderful illusion that Bai Qing simulated, their illusion was undoubtedly much crueler. If someone were still in the main hall, they would find the 6 people lined up in a row, sitting in front of the 2 statues. They were completely still, only their expressions slightly changing. Master seems to have entered an illusion again. Xiao Hei sighed helplessly, just looking at the scene in front of him. This could be judged. Xiao Bai nodded. Yes, I don't know how long it will take Master before she comes out of this illusion. We can only wait here. It is a pity, if only we could enter the illusion too. Xiao Hei sighed. An illusion would act on a cultivator's spiritual power, so their master entered the illusion, while they too were still outside. We'll wait for them to succeed, okay? Xiao Bai took a look at Xiao Hei and directly went into a state of cultivation. The whole hall was boring. It was better to cultivate than to continue learning. On seeing this, Xiao Hei glanced at Xiao Bai. Then he too reluctantly started to cultivate. In the beautiful pavilion, the notes that originally sounded awkward and ugly continued to be refined each day, until the noise disappeared completely and turned to something pleasing to the ear. In addition to learning the Guqin, Bailey Hong Zhuang now also had a good understanding of Go and calligraphy. Bai Qing was a well-deserved master, and everything about her was good. No matter what she did, she was good at it, but the art that Bailey Hong Zhuang learned the most was the Guqin. Because the Guqin music she earned was not for the sake of entertainment, but for killing people. After seeing the killing aura accompanying Bai Qing's Guqin notes, Bailey Hong Zhuang was also amazed. Killing people with sound was a very special technique. As early as 1,000 years ago, when she was in the Bailey family, she had heard of killing people with sound. The method was only mastered by a special family. Except for the cultivators of that family, no one else could learn it. This was a very remarkable method. It had a wide range of function and was not suitable for single-player combat, but it was suitable for group battles. If you could affect an opponent within a few hundred meters from you just using the sound of Guqin, then it was, of course, a powerful method. She had never thought that she would have the opportunity to learn such a technique in a monument, and undoubtedly this was an added card for her. Zheng. A Guqin note sounded from beneath Bailey Hong Zhuang's hands, strong tyrannical energy accompanying the Guqin's note. When the time came, the peach trees in front of her were slammed by it and broke. The peach blossoms were all destroyed by the Guqin's sound. Bailey Hong Zhuang slowly stood up and looked at the disappearing peach forest in front of her with a smile on her face. She had studied the Guqin music here for 3 years and finally mastered it. In the last 3 years, she had not only mastered this technique, but also made great progress in her own strength. Her combat skills had greatly improved, and it was no small change since she first came to the monument. Clap, clap. Bai Qing smiled and applauded gently, looking at Bailey Hong Zhuang with eyes filled full of satisfaction. Chapter 572 Farewell. 3 years of memories. Your understanding ability is very high, beyond my expectations. Bai Qing's face had an appreciative expression. This time, Bailey Hong Zhuang's quick grasping power had really amazed her. However, in addition to her understanding, she had a deeper impression of Bailey Hong Zhuang's persistence and hard work. This kind of persistence and perseverance to reach her level was really admirable to her. If all cultivators could have such qualities, then they need not worry about their future achievements. She had seen too many cultivators whose talent and intellect was not lacking, but in the end, they did not succeed much just because they did not work hard enough. As a woman, especially a beautiful woman, there were even fewer people who worked as hard as Bailey Hong Zhuang. It seems that she had really found the best inheritor. In the beginning, she spent a lot of time studying the art of killing with music. She'd complained, wanted to give up, but had finally persisted under her master's careful nurturing. The time Bailey Hong Zhuang had spent was even shorter than hers, and there was never the slightest mention of giving up. Her will was always firm, and despite her young age, she showed a maturity that most people her age didn't possess. "Thank you, Master, for your careful teachings." Bailey Hong Zhuang smiled cleverly and walked forward to Bai Qing. Bai Qing was a well-deserved master. Her temper was not the slightest bit picky. She had taught her very carefully. It was for this reason that she could have progressed so fast. Previously, she did not know what this illusion was. She only thought that it would be necessary to break the illusion before she passed the assessment. She never thought that her assessment would be carried out in the illusion. "Since you have mastered the art thoroughly, then my inheritance is over and you can leave." Bai Qing smiled. Hearing these words, Bailey Hong Zhuang's smile that had been overflowing with happiness on her face quietly changed a bit, as a feeling of disappointment spread in her heart. In the past 3 years, she had been with Bai Qing, and her relationship with Bai Qing was one of both teacher and friend. She had known that such a day would come, but had forgotten that after the inheritance ended, Bai Qing would disappear. At the thought of this, Bailey Hong Zhuang actually hoped that this inheritance would never end. "Master," Bailey Hong Zhuang yelled, and her beautiful and charming face was full of disappointment, and her pair of glassy eyes were faintly red. Bai Qing smiled and said, "Silly Hong Zhuang, there will always be days like this. My soul has already scattered between heaven and earth. That you could find this monument also makes me leave without regrets." While Bai Qing's words were free and full of ease, but even her eyes were faintly tearful. "Master, Bailey Hong Zhuang opened her mouth, but she did not know what to say. She understood that Bai Qing was telling the truth, but such a farewell could only be called ruthless to herself and to her. "Farewell." Bai Qing waved her hand and turned her back to Bailey Hong Zhuang, a line of tears streaming as she quietly left. Bailey Hong Zhuang was stunned looking at Bai Qing's graceful and unparalleled figure. She felt that Bai Qing was the most beautiful woman that she had ever seen in her life. "Thank you, Master, for your grace and inheritance." Bailey Hong Zhuang bowed to 90 degrees and gave obeisance. Her voice was heavy and full of sadness. When she saw Bai Qing's figure gradually becoming illusory in front of her eyes, a soft and sweet voice floated to her in the air. "Don't feel sad. You and I were lucky to meet each other. I only hope that you can go further and further in the future. May what I have taught you and what you learned help you a lot." Chapter 573, A Myriad Stars Surround the Moon. Bailey Hong Zhuang, as Bai Qing's voice fell, her figure turned to blue smoke in front of Bailey Hong Zhuang's eyes, and the illusion of the peach blossom forest in front of her was shattered into pieces in an instant. "Gotcha!" It sounded like the sound of a breaking mirror, and the illusion in front of Bailey Hong Zhuang disappeared completely. Bailey Hong Zhuang slowly opened her eyes and looked at the vivid sculptures in front of her. The corner of her mouth slowly upturned in a smile. Bai Qing had become one of the people who had made an impression on her in this life. They were not born in the same era, but they still had such a fate. The next moment, Bailey Hong Zhuang went up to Bai Qing and Ye Xiao Feng and bowed down. She understood that there was no use even if she wanted them to come back, so she just thanked Bai Qing's sculpture in front of her. Turning around, Bailey Hong Zhuang's figure flickered and she was sent outside the monument. When Bailey Hong Zhuang came out of the monument, the bright and warm sunshine fell on her body, making it look as if she had been dusted with a layer of gold powder. Feeling the light of the sun, Bailey Hong Zhuang's cinnabar lips slowly turned up in a smile. Now out of the monument, but there was still a feeling of separation. "Wifey," a fascinating and magnetic voice suddenly sounded, and then a figure clad in pale gold appeared in front of Bailey Hong Zhuang. The tall figure like bamboo was extremely graceful, and the handsome and extraordinary face was perfect. Di Beichen's face had a gentle smile, and he quickly walked to Bailey Hong Zhuang. When she saw Di Beichen, Bailey Hong Zhuang's face also showed a smile. "You came out earlier than me." When she came out of the illusion, in the whole hall there was no one but her. We all came out only a few days before you. Xiaoji Qing's face was filled with an excited smile. Hong Zhuang, you could be considered the slowest this time, haha. Lin Yiro, Dong Fengyu, and Gong Xiaoqing all walked together to Bailey Hong Zhuang's side, and all of their faces had a joyous smile. Bailey Gunyang, your inheritance was the longest. The inheritance you obtained must be the most precious. Lin Yiro's voice was quiet, and her words had a different meaning than Xiaoji Qing's. Hearing these words, doubt appeared in Bailey Hong Zhuang's eyes. How could it be? We have different inheritances? They all had accepted the inheritance together, and then entered the illusion. She'd only thought that they all accepted the same inheritance. Xiaoji Qing shook her head. I previously thought that the inheritance accepted by everyone was the same. However, after I talked to Lin Gunyang, I discovered that the inheritance we had received was not the same. I learned a set of whip skills, while Lin Gunyang learned swordsmanship. Not only us, but the inheritance of Di Bei, Chun, Gong Xiaoqing, and Dong Fengyu was also different. Bailey Hong Zhuang now understood. Although they all got an inheritance, the inheritance passed down were not the same. It turned out so. Han Xiling had been waiting for Bailey Hong Zhuang to come out and saw everyone rushed up to her and surround her when she came out. Previously, she'd always been like a star. However, Bailey Hong Zhuang was the moon, and everyone else around her were stars surrounding her. They would all pay attention to her. The most important thing was that even Di Dage's smile was for Bailey Hong Zhuang. In the past, although Di Dage's smile was often on his face, the smile didn't come from the bottom of his heart. It was just a perfunctory gesture. Now, Di Dage's face came from the bottom of his heart. This kind of smile, except for when facing the sovereign, he would probably only give it to Bailey Hong Zhuang. Chapter 574, The Four Arts. How is it possible? Hong Zhuang, what inheritance did you get? Xiaoji Qing revealed her curiosity. After this trip to the monument, she had discovered that inheritance was a very magical thing. If it wasn't for her personally experiencing it, and only others saying she would not believe it. With Xiaoji Qing's voice falling, everyone's eyes fell on Bailey Hong Zhuang's figure, and some of them too wondered what inheritance she got. I learned the four arts. Bailey Hong Zhuang smiled. How is it possible? This inheritance actually taught you the four arts? When these words were said, everyone paused, and then looked at Bailey Hong Zhuang incredulously. They only felt that they had heard it wrong. Dong Fengyu's were full of a strange expression. After all, they all had learned very powerful martial arts. The inheritance of a peerlessly strong master was not about cultivation, but about the four arts. There seemed to be something wrong here. Hong Zhuang, you shouldn't be joking, right? Xiaoji Qing was worried. This answer was really too unexpected. Bailey Hong Zhuang smiled, and her eyebrows revealed her sly look. I'm telling the truth. During this time, she really had studied Guqin, Go, calligraphy, and painting with all her heart. It was only that it had been integrated with attack power. At the time, everyone was puzzled. Only Di Bei Chen's eyes were shining. Since everyone has already come out, I'm going to leave. Lin Yiro smiled, her smile gentle and quiet. The family is still waiting for me to come back and report the news, and I won't be able to stay here any longer. Listening to this, Bailey Hong Zhuang and the others nodded. Lin Jia's cultivators have been waiting outside the monument for Lin Yiro. Take care. Bailey Hong Zhuang waved her hand. She and Lin Yiro were not too familiar with each other. However, Lin Yiro and she has a very good relationship, and their impression of the other was quite good. In addition, Lin Yiro had come out earlier, and the reason she had waited until now was for her, because she also felt some friendship. Take care. Lin Yiro waved her hand to the crowd, still smiling. I hope there will be opportunities to meet in the future. Then, Lin Yiro walked back to Lin Jia's team. They had to go back. Hong Zhuang, since you've already come out, we should go back to the college. Gong Xiaoqing slowly said. This time the duration they had stayed out was not short. Hearing this, Bailey Hong Zhuang nodded slightly. Yes, How long have we been in a monument so far? She'd stayed in the illusion for 3 years, but she didn't know how long it had been in reality. We have been in a monument for about 1 month now. The peach blossom eyes were full of smiles as Dong Fangyu said. In fact, when they came out of the inheritance, everyone had asked this question. They originally felt that they had stayed inside for many years, but they never could have thought that it was only for about a month. This made them feel that the two masters were even more peerless. In just 2 weeks, they had been able to master martial arts of such high caliber. It was amazing. It turned out to be so. Bailey Hong Zhuang was stunned. Although this situation was somewhat as she expected, she still felt that she had spent 3 years, but in actuality, the time was only half a month. In half a month, she had mastered the skill of killing people with sound, which was really a big gain. Chapter 575 Acting Poor. Han Xiling. Let's go back. We've stayed back in a monument for so many days, and I really want to go back to the college. Xia Zhiqing entwined her hand and looked excited. The previous situation was too tense, and the pressure she felt was quite high. Now that they had finally completed the inheritance, they should go back and relax. Listening to Xia Zhiqing's words, everyone's faces showed a smile. This was also their thought. Just when everyone was ready to leave, Han Xiling walked in front of Di Bei-chun and said, "Di-Dage, you and I should go back to Tiangang Zone." With Han Xiling's words falling, the previous very happy atmosphere immediately changed as things became rigid between them. For this Han Xiling, although they know that Han Xiling was distinguished and noble and also had good cultivation, but for this woman, they really do not have any good feelings. Not for others, but because Bailey Hong Zhuang was their friend. Any woman that tried to come between Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Bei-chun, they would naturally not like her. Di Bei-chun's brows slightly wrinkled as he said, "Xiling, go back on your own. I'm going to the college." "Dage, that college will not help you at all, but it will drag down your progress. Why do you need to go to that college?" Han Xiling's eyebrows also wrinkled, her eyes full of advice. She really did not understand. Was this Bailey Hong Zhuang really so charming? What kind of status and weight did D-Dage have? Now, for Bailey Hong Zhuang, he didn't even care about anything. It was really hard for her to believe. "This is my business. You don't have to worry." Di Bei-chun's voice was firm and determined, and the unmistakable meaning was revealed. He did not intend to listen to Han Xiling's advice. Han Xiling's face changed a bit. In front of so many people, D-Dage was acting so indifferent to her. "D-Dage, why are you treating me like this?" The elegant and moving face was full of sadness and loss, and Han Xiling's voice was low, but it revealed her pitiful state. "Hong Zhuang, this Han Xiling is really despicable, trying so hard to pretend to be poor." Xia Zhiqing looked dissatisfied. As a woman, she could best understand women. What she hated most were fake women. Di Bei-chun's attitude was clearly expressed, and Di Bei-chun and Bailey Hong Zhuang were married. They too were already a couple. No matter whether Han Xiling matched the identity of Di Bei-chun or not, she had no right to cause any disturbance now. In her opinion, Han Xiling, who was said to be great by others, was fake. She simply didn't care about her and only thought that Han Xiling was really shameless. What was good about a woman who tried to destroy feelings between a couple, even if she was quite good? Bailey Hong Zhuang sneered. For this Han Xiling, she already understood her, but she was not willing to talk too much. "Xiling, you go back to Tiangang Zone and cultivate well. You don't need to take care of my affairs." Di's voice was very cold. "I want to accompany my wife back to the college, and I will come back to Tiangang Zone in the future together with my wife." Hearing this, Han Xiling looked at Di Bei-chun incredulously. Was it that D-Dage was planning to always be with Bailey Hong Zhuang? How could that be? What was the identity of Bailey Hong Zhuang? D-Dage wanted to stay with Bailey Hong Zhuang in the future. Was he completely ignoring his own future? D-Dage, when did you become so irrational? Han Xiling looked disappointed. How will you take care of your affairs in the future? Chapter 576 left speechless. Han Xiling, my business, I can take care of it. There wasn't the slightest hint of a smile on Di Bei Chen's face, and in his voice was a hint of intolerance. Xiling, you have never muddled in my matters before. It is better to go back and cultivate. No need to worry about my affairs. Seeing that Di Bei Chen's words were no longer polite, Han Xiling's face became uglier by the second, and her heart was even more hateful to Bailey Hong Zhuang. Before Bailey Hong Zhuang appeared, Di Dage has never spoken to her with such an attitude. Master, this Han Xiling's face is really thick. Even after saying all this, she is still so persistent. Xiaohei's expression was full of disgust. All those Han Xiling is elegant as a lotus, cold and proud, were nothing but lies. What was this Han Xiling who kept persisting despite having been told off? Gong Xiaoqing and Dong Fong, you were also helpless at this moment. This kind of matter was really chaotic. Di Dage, I am doing these for you. Han Xiling frowned pitifully. Not waiting for Di Beichen to speak, Xia Zhiqing had already spoken out loud first. I say, Han Xiling, Di Beichun has already told you don't need to be nosy, and you're still here talking about what, Han Xiling hesitated, but still continued as she retorted to Xia Zhiqing. This matter is between Di Dage and me. What's it to you? It's nothing to do with me. Then Di Beichun and Hong Zhuang's matters don't have anything to do with you either. Xia Zhiqing crossed her arms, a justified look on her face. I don't understand. Is it necessary for you to intervene in the matters between a husband and wife? You really are quite thick-faced to call me an unrelated party, while being one yourself. Di Beichun has already said that he wants to stay with his wife. That said, why are you trying to stop him? If you're so bored, it's better to go and find a husband, right? I think Yin Ling Xian is right for you. Xia Zhiqing didn't pause to take a breath and said all these, directly forcing Han Xiling into speechlessness, unable to retort. She really couldn't stand it anymore. From the very beginning, this woman had made very clear that she likes Di Beichun. Fortunately, Di Beichen's attitude was very firm. He had already shown that there was only Bailey Hong Zhuang in his heart, but Han Xiling's later moves were really disgusting. Letting her do as she pleased before she scrammed, even speaking to her tactfully, this woman couldn't understand it at all. This kind of person was the most disgusting. Hearing Xia Zhiqing's remarks, Gong Xiaoqing and Dong Fong were both amazed. Although they had always known that Xia Zhiqing's words were not soft, but such poisonous words, her ability to curse could not be underestimated. Amazing, extremely amazing. Xiaohei clapped. Xia Zhiqing's words are really fitting. This character, this temper, it really suits Master's friend, huh? Xiaobao was also very excited. If it were not that they could not appear before anyone, they would have already rushed to Han Xiling and hit her. This kind of thing, their master wouldn't agree with it, but they could still hope. They hadn't expected Xia Zhiqing to speak up. This really made them feel very happy. Bailey Hong Zhuang's face also had a sly smile. She had still been polite with her actions, but Han Xiling was taking things too far. She couldn't stand it. Han Xiling trembled with anger. No one had ever dared to speak to her this way since she was a child. I flushed red with rage, but Han Xiling could not say a word of retort. Chapter 577. Don't provoke my wife to unhappiness. Don't you I me mine. Go back. We don't have anyone here who welcomes you. Xia Zhiqing was extremely ruthless. She was a good friend of Bailey Hong Zhuang. Naturally, she would vent for Hong Zhuang. This Han Xiling's face was so thick, even if she was explained to like a child, she was afraid that there would be no improvement in her actions. It was better to directly tear down her face. She would make sure this woman had no face to continue staying here. Han Xiling had never been spoken to in this way since she was born, and she was not good at coping with it. Therefore, under Xia Zhiqing's flying barrage of words, she could not answer a word at all. Di Dage, in desperation, Han Xiling could only look at Di Beichun. How the other people and Bailey Hong Zhuang looked at her, she did not care. She only cared about the thoughts of Di Beichun. However, Di Bei-chun did not comfort her as she had imagined. On the contrary, Di Bei-chun's words did not have the slightest sentiment. Xia Gunyang's words are very reasonable. I already have a union with Hong Zhuang. With you acting like this, it is easy to misunderstand, and that will cause my wife to be unhappy. I don't want my wife to be unhappy. I hope that between you and me, we can keep distance. It is the best for us. Di Bei-chun's words were indifferent without the slightest ambiguity, full of emotions for Bailey Hong Zhuang. He had always been a person who was extremely indifferent, but in this life, there would only be Bailey Hong Zhuang for him. Previously in the monument, Bailey Hong Zhuang's rhetorical question had made him understand a lot of things. In his eyes, Shi Ling had always been arrogant and cold, never going to others to find trouble. But this time, Shi Ling had obviously taken the initiative to trouble Bailey Hong Zhuang. He believed that Bailey Hong Zhuang was not a person who said anything without reason. Since she had said those words, she must have found some problems. He did not want things to develop into an irreversible situation, so he must make everything clear now. This attitude would also reassure his wife. Han Xiling saw Di Bei-chun's attitude, and her face became gloomy to the extreme, and she noticed Xia Zhiqing and others looking at her. Their eyes were full of ridicule, and she felt it. In her heart, she became even angrier. Di Dage, that woman is not worthy of you at all. You will return to Tiangangzong sooner or later. Her voice falling, Han Xiling no longer looked at Bailey Hong Zhuang and the other people, running towards the front, ready to leave. She's finally gone. Xia Zhiqing sighed. I was really worried, not knowing when that woman would go. Dong Fong, you discreetly gave a thumbs up to Xia Zhiqing, and Xia Zhiqing's face was really happy. These days, he had long understood that there was no possibility between him and Hong Zhuang, but he also hoped that Bailey Hong Zhuang could be happy. Obviously, Han Xiling was a stumbling block in Bailey Hong Zhuang's happiness. Naturally, she had to leave. Although Gong Shaoqing's attitude was not as obviously expressed as Dong Fengyu, it could be seen that he agreed from his slight nod. Di Bei-chun changed his line of sight as he gazed at Bailey Hong Zhuang. His lips were curved in a charming and evil smile as he asked, Wifey, I did this. Do you feel satisfied? For him now, this was nothing. The most important thing was Bailey Hong Zhuang. Bailey Hong Zhuang shrugged. Slightly, but this trouble is what you stirred up. Hearing this, Di Bei-chun's smile grew slightly wider. My lady is a magnanimous person. In the future, I promise that this kind of thing will not happen again, okay? Chapter 578, Because I Want to Marry You. Bailey Hong Zhuang squinted and looked at Di Bei-chun's face. Won't happen again? What has it got to do with me, though? This guy was the big trouble magnet. Ji Yin'er troubled them because of him. Han Xiling caused trouble because of him too. Therefore, Di Bei-chun was the biggest trouble. Di Bei-chun walked to Bailey Hong Zhuang's side and directly held her hand. He smiled and asked, Is wifey angry? Xia Zhiqing and the others were on the side of Di Bei-chun and Bailey Hong Zhuang. After hearing those words, they couldn't look at them anymore and walked back, leaving some space between them and Di Bei-chun and Bailey Hong Zhuang. What am I angry about? Bailey Hong Zhuang asked. It's just because you caused two troublesome people to appear, and it's too bothersome. The thing with Shi Ling was indeed beyond my expectations, but I have told Shi Ling clearly she won't trouble wifey again. How? Di Bei-chun's voice and eyes were very loving. Bailey Hong Zhuang had actually been very polite to Han Xiling. She is, after all, a sister you have known for many years. How can I compare with her? Bailey Hong Zhuang smiled, but there was a slight self-deprecating expression on her face, her eyebrows drawn. When these words were said, Di Bei-chun's expression changed a bit, and he couldn't help but turn Bailey Hong Zhuang's body as he stared into her eyes. Wifey, in my Di Bei-chun's heart, you are the most important. No one can compare. Di Bei-chun's expression was serious and sincere, and there was slight tension and worry on his usually evil-smiled face. He was only afraid that because of Han Xiling's matters, he couldn't be happy with Bailey Hong Zhuang. If she were to ignore him, he would be really depressed. Seeing that Di Bei-chun was so serious, there was some doubt in Bailey Hongzhuang's heart. In your heart, I am so important? Di Bei-chun nodded without hesitation. In what? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. If it is because I cured your illness, you don't need to know. Not waiting for Bailey Hongzhuang to complete her sentence, Di Bei-chun had already interrupted her. I like you, never because you cured me, but because I simply like you. Like your character, like your temper, like your perseverance, like your daring nature, like everything about you. Just because I like you, I want to be with you. Di Bei-chun's deep sea-like yes shimmered with a brilliant luster, and he gazed at Bailey Hongzhuang, the love and care in his expression clear. This was the first time he had seriously expressed his feelings to Bailey Hongzhuang. He wanted to make Bailey Hongzhuang clear about his own thoughts and believe in him. Actually, I had never thought that I would like a person until you appeared. Di Bei-chun's eyes were warm with a not-so-distant memory. From the first time I saw you, the feeling you gave me was different from others, and later, after getting along with you more, my heart became warm. I had never felt pressure to marry you. I am even grateful to that Li for his muddling. It was because of his suggestion that I could marry you. Not for cooperation, just because I want to marry you. Di Bei-chun's words had absolute certainty. Until now, he had only acknowledged his own thoughts. As early as the very beginning, he was bent on making Bailey Hongzhuang his wife and like him. Chapter 579, Are You Willing to Be With Me? He had never been a person who was afraid of rejection. Even though his legs had become crippled, it was not his entire life that he had to be the prince of a country. The reason why he liked Bailey Hongzhuang was never because of her having cured him and the situation at the time, but because he really cared for her. Listening to Di Bei-chun's words, Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned, and a strange expression and that of wrongness flashed in her clear eyes, but her heart quietly filled with a bit of joy. She had never heard Di Bei-chun say this. Even when she cultivated outside, he had always been with her, and although she'd always felt it was strange, she had never put his actions in her heart. It was not until Di Bei-chun had hurried back after the demonic beast tide that she felt somewhat differently for Di Bei-chun. After Di Bei-chun had become a student at Songlan College, her feelings and his had become more and more obvious, but it was still the first time that Di Bei-chun had told her the thoughts in his heart. There are a lot of outstanding women around you. Regardless of their strength, status, or strength, they are good, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Di Bei-chun shook his head and directly grasped Bailey Hongzhuang's hands. However good others are, they still can't compare with you in my heart. Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes narrowed, and she looked into the pair of serious and nervous eyes. She could only see sincerity that came from the heart, and there was no falsehood. Nyangzi, are you willing to be with me? Di Bei-chun asked. Bailey Hongzhuang was silent. As a matter of fact, the two of them had already become quite close and were also married. It was a good choice to do this. However, she still bore a bloody sea of enmity, and her parents' whereabouts were unknown. Her future was uncertain. Master, you shouldn't think so much. I think that Di Bei-chun's will is quite firm, and he is certainly not afraid of such things. If you like him, why bother worrying so much? Xiao Hei's eyes flashed with a touch of gentleness. Unlike their gluttonous nature, on usual days they had been with Master for such a long time, and of course, they had a certain understanding of the thoughts in their master's heart. Di Bei-chun was really a peerless man. If Master could be with Di Bei-chun, it was a good thing. Xiao Hei has said it well. According to me, Master and Di Bei-chun are a perfect match. As for the future, let's think about it later. Xiao Bai said excitedly. Between their master and Di Bei-chun, there had never been any sort of intimacy. Although Di Bei-chun's actions had been very obvious, they had always been slight temptations, and he had never directly revealed his thoughts. However, since Master took Di Bei-chun's hand and walked into the miasma forest, the situation had become different. When Di Bei-chun saw that Bailey Hongzhuang never said anything for a long time, his heart gradually sank. He had clearly seen that Bailey Hong Zhuang had affection for him, but could it be that, because of what had happened later, Bailey Hong Zhuang had changed her mind? A feeling of unspeakable loss spread in his heart. Since a long time, Bailey Hong Zhuang's smile had already been etched in his heart, and it had become one of the most important parts. If his wifey still couldn't believe in him absolutely, then he would continue to wait. However, just as Di Bei-chun resolved this in his heart, Bailey Hong Zhuang's faint voice rang in his ears. Okay. When this word was heard, Di Bei-chun suddenly looked up at Bailey Hong Zhuang. He only felt that he had got it wrong. Chapter 580, My Wifey Promised to Be With Me. Nyangzi, what did you say? Di Bei-chun was full of nervousness. Can you say it again? Di Bei-chun's nervous expression was full of disbelief. No matter what happened, he had also experienced many things in his life. Even when his legs had suddenly been disabled, this young master had never shown such a nervous expression. Bailey Hong Zhuang saw that extraordinarily handsome but nervous face, and her mouth curved as she chuckled. I've already said it. If you didn't hear it, then forget it. Saying so, Bailey Hong Zhuang walked forwards, as if ready to go. However, Di Bei-chun held her elbow and prevented her from leaving. Nyangzi, just once, can you say it again? Di Bei-chun's eyes were on Bailey Hong Zhuang, and Bailey Hong Zhuang's figure was reflected in them, as if his entire world had only Bailey Hong Zhuang. Bailey Hong Zhuang did not know how important this answer was to him. For the first time in his life, Di Bei-chun had a woman who he cherished more than his life, but he was not with her. If this news were to be spread, no one would believe it. However, he would remain firm. Even if Bailey Hong Zhuang refused, he would continue to pursue her. Because, in his heart, no one could compare with Bailey Hong Zhuang. If Bailey Hong Zhuang was not willing to be with him in this life, then he would never find another person who was willing to be with him. In the past, in exception to his master, his world was only cultivation. It was the brightest moment of his life, but now his cold and indifferent heart had mixed emotions for the first time. He felt that he too could feel eagerness, anger, and nervousness. Upon seeing this, Bailey Hong Zhuang couldn't help but chuckle again as she said, I said okay. Her voice just fell, and the tension on Di Bei-chun's face had transformed into ecstasy in an instant. This extreme joy came from his heart, and his ecstatic expression could not be suppressed. He hugged Bailey Hong Zhuang tightly. Excitedly, he twirled around in the same place. My wifey promised to be with me, huh? The hearty and loud laughter spread through the forest, revealing his uncontrollable joy. Di Bei-chun, finally got what he wanted most in his heart. Suddenly hugged by Di Bei-chun, Bailey Hong Zhuang was shocked for a moment. But after hearing Di Bei-chun's words, her hands wrapped around Di Bei-chun's neck. A faintly intoxicated smile spread across her mouth, revealing happiness and joy. She didn't know when she had been completely taken in by Di Bei-chun. Perhaps it was the very first time she had met this unparalleled person. He had been afraid of her being hurt, so he deliberately went the waterfall to accompany her while cultivating. He was such a handsome man, but he was willing to see all her ugly sides. He had left everything and rushed to the college, just to make sure she was safe. Also, he was willing to put his life in her hands as he firmly walked into the miasma forest. The man in front of her was good to her, and all these had been deeply imprinted in her heart. She didn't know since when she had this sincere and perfect feeling for him. But what this man had done for her, she felt was unforgettable in her life. Holding someone's hands from youth to when they were old, she had never imagined such a thing before. But when Di Bei-chun appeared, everything fell into place. Chapter 581 Happy. Di Bei-chun in the clearing. Xia Zhiqing and others heard Di Bei-chun's words, and doubt appeared in their eyes. What happened to Di Bei-chun? Isn't Bailey Hong Zhuang already his wife? Xia Zhiqing was puzzled. After all, the words said were really too strange. Could it be that there was something going on with Bailey Hong Zhuang's marriage with Di Bei-chun? Well, as long as they are happy. Dong Fongyu's mouth curved up in a smile, his expression free and easy. Now he finally felt completely at ease. As long as Bailey Hong Zhuang was happy, he felt happy. Hearing this, Xia Zhiqing and Gong Xiaoqing also showed a smile. They were sincerely happy for Di Beichun and Bailey Hong Zhuang. They really are happy. Xia Zhiqing's eyebrows revealed her happiness. If she could be with a person who treated her as well in the future, then that was good. Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Beichun later joined with Xia Zhiqing and others. When the two people appeared, Xia Zhiqing and the other two have sly smiles on their faces. Just now, we heard someone's words of joy. Xia Zhiqing looked at Di Beichun. What happened? Di Beichun's extraordinary face revealed a smile. My wife finally agreed to be with me. Listening to this very strange answer, Xia Zhiqing couldn't help but ask, "What do you mean? Aren't you already married?" Di Beichun shook his head with a smile. Marriage does not mean that the two people's minds are one. Only now have I finally succeeded. What do you mean? Xia Zhiqing touched her head in confusion. What Di Beichun had said was really incomprehensible to her. Gong Xiaoqing's face was also filled with a little bit of confusion. Only Dong Fong Yu showed a certain look of enlightenment. Previously, he had noticed the relationship between Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Beichun. Although they were already married, there was obviously a certain distance between the both of them. It wasn't until after Di Beichun's determination to unhesitantly walk into the miasma forest that the distance between the two people had disappeared completely. Don't care much about these. Bailey Hong Zhuang smiled. With her understanding of Xia Zhiqing's character, she would surely keep pondering on this. Hearing this, Xia Zhiqing nodded. I don't care, but after returning to the college, you two must treat me to a good meal. Either way, I help you get rid of a nasty fly. Xia Zhiqing winked at Bailey Hong Zhuang. This kind of thing, Di Beichun had not been able to deal with it. She, as her friend, would obviously help her bear the brunt. No problem. Di Beichun did not hesitate to agree. His mood was very good. Today was the happiest day of his life. Let alone a meal for some people. Even if they invited the whole college to eat, he did not care. We both will also come. That is only natural. Bailey Hong Zhuang smiled. After going through the monument, everyone only felt that their relationship was getting closer. After all, even in the face of the four major families, they always firmly stood together. This sentiment was precious. When the five people walked out of the miasma forest, the mercenaries who had been surrounding the miasma forest had already left. In fact, these people had already left when Yin Lingxian took the lead. It had taken some time to complete the blue-level mission of the Mercenary Union, but their harvest was much more rewarding than a blue-level mission. Chapter 582 returned to Songlan College. The five people made their way back to the college, and they all felt different when they came back. This time during their return, they only felt relaxed. Without the interference of Hu Cheng and others, and with the experienced Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Beichun, it was very simple for everyone to leave the Luo Yin Mountains. No monsters attacked them on the way. Azure Water City, after a period of rushing back, Bailey Hong Zhuang and others finally arrived at Azure Water City. The hustle-bustle and the din sounded in everyone's ears. The familiar scenes, the busy marketplace. Once they saw this scene again, an unspeakable feeling helplessly emerged in everyone's hearts. Although they had left the college only for a month, they had spent a lot of years in the illusion. This period of time was deeply ingrained in their hearts, and at the moment they saw the Azure Water City, they only felt how long it had been. We are finally back, Xia Zhiqing said with a sigh of relief. With her years of learning in the illusion, her mentality had changed a lot. A little less childish, a little more mature, and many things about her had changed with the gradual tempering of time. Although she seemed the same as before, her temperament had changed a lot. Bailey Hong Zhuang and other people looked at each other and then walked toward the college. Now that they had safely returned, they should first go back to the college and report to them. With Bailey Hong Zhuang and the other four walking into the city, all the eyes were condensed on them. Isn't that the college's special enrollment class's Bailey Hong Zhuang? and other people. Yes, it's them. I heard that they were chosen by the master of a monument in the Luoyun forest to get the inheritance, and they are back today. Eyes filled with curiosity or envy fell on the group of five. As early as when Lu Huaiyin and others had returned to Azure Water City, this news had already spread. During this time, this group of five had apparently become the people's focus of discussion. At this moment, when they came back, everyone naturally felt a sense of emotion. Listening to everyone talk, Xia Zhiqing's face showed a wide smile. Hong Zhuang, this is the first time I've been watched by so many people. When she was with Bailey Hong Zhuang, others were amazed by Hong Zhuang's strength, but there was no word about her. It was also for this reason that she had an unspeakable desire to enter the special enrollment class. She didn't expect that she had just become a special enrollment student and she had gotten an inheritance. This kind of luck was hard to believe, even for herself. All of this was because of Hong Zong and Bai Junyu. If it wasn't for Hong Zhuang and Bai Junyu who helped her speak in front of the two teachers, she wouldn't have had the opportunity to participate in the assessment for special enrollment students. She was afraid that even till now she would be cultivating with the ordinary students in the college. Where would she have ever encountered a powerful ancient monument? Hearing the hidden meaning in Xia Zhiqing's words, Bailey Hong Zhuang's eyes also showed a smile. In the future, you will definitely become the focus of everyone's attention. She believed that with Xia Zhiqing's talent and hard work, her future achievements would certainly not be bad. Xia Zhiqing looked at Bailey Hong Zhuang, and the smile on her lips gradually widened. I will work hard. Soon, everyone came to the gate of the college, people's voice still following them. Chapter 583, Anxiously Awaiting. Lu Qin Yua. Isn't that Senior Dong and also Senior Gong? They are back. The students who were practicing in the martial arts field of the college saw the group of Dong, Fong Yu, and others, and their radiant faces were filled with happy smiles at the moment. I heard Teacher Lu say that they gained an inheritance in the monument. Now, I'm sure that their strength has increased a lot. It is really enviable. The most enviable of them all is Xia Zhiqing. She just entered the special enrollment class and followed the team while going to the Luoyun mountain range. And this time, she got an inheritance. This luck is almost unparalleled. When these words were heard, everyone nodded. They had already gotten used to the strength of Dong Fongyu and others. Because, from the time they entered the college, Dong Fongyu and the others were superior, and the distance between them had never narrowed. However, Xia Zhiqing was different. Xia Zhiqing was originally an ordinary student just like them, and now that Xia Zhiqing could get such a result made them even more envious. Xia Zhiqing's face was full of smiles. She has never been valued by so many people. An indescribable joy spread in her heart. Her constant efforts had not been in vain. Bailey Hong Zhuang and the other four people walked to the inside of the college, the crowd's voice still following them. The news that they had come back was also spreading very fast. They believed that even the principal would know soon. When they reached near the special enrollment dormitory, Cui Haoyin, Zhang Yunfeng, Bai Junyu, and Lu Qin were standing outside the dormitory building with smiles, watching the approaching Bailey Hong Zhuang and other people. You are finally back. Zhang Yunfeng's face was filled with an excited smile. We were waiting for you to come. With Zhang Yunfeng's voice falling, smiles also appeared on the faces of Bailey Hong Zhuang and others. The only exception to this was Lu Qinyu. Hearing the joking tone of Zhang Yunfeng, Lu Qinyu felt a bit shy, but after seeing the handsome and tall Gong Shaoqing, the corners of her lips couldn't help but curve up in a gentle smile. Gong Dage, you are back. Her gentle words were filled with endless thoughts and worries, and Lu Qinyu's voice was also faint with a bit of trembling. Since she had left from the gates in front of the monument a month ago, she had left her heart there. After returning, she had no interest in practicing alchemy and no intention of cultivating. All her thoughts were placed on Gong Shaoqing returning safely, and she was restless. She suddenly regretted that she first went back to the college. At least in the ruins, she could also be assured about Gong Xiaoqing's safety. After returning, the only one in the special enrollment dormitory was her, and she was full of sadness every day. Until half a month ago, when Zhang Yunfeng and others told her that Gong Xiaoqing was safe and sound, and that he had also gotten inheritance, only then was she relieved. Since he had already gotten the inheritance, then it would no longer be dangerous. However, as the days passed, Gong Xiaoqing had not returned, and she could not help but feel worried. Until now, she finally had her peace of mind. Gong Xiaoqing nodded slightly, and the face was just slightly less cold than it usually was. However, in the pair of calm and unwavering deep eyes, there was never a response for Lu Qinyu's feelings, and Lu Qinyu was somewhat disappointed. Zhang Yunfeng went straight to Bailey Hongzhuang. After the previous period of time, the gap between the two had already disappeared completely. Chapter 584 Envy, Zhang Yunfeng, Hongzhuang. After such a long time you all have accepted the inheritance? Zhang Yunfeng's eyes sparkled with curiosity. For the inheritance they got, she was very curious, but she was not as lucky as Bailey Hongzhuang and had no chance of being the inheritor. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at her lightly, and her beautiful face was faintly smiling. Yes, we came back as soon as we had accepted the inheritance. Zhang Yunfeng looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Xia Zhiqing. Before she had heard that there could only be one person who could inherit the treasures of a monument. But this time the inheritance has been passed down to 6 people. It was really different. Indeed, we all got an inheritance, but everyone has a different one. Bailey Hongzhuang understood Zhang Yunfeng's curiosity and did not mind explaining it to her. If she had not crossed over, but really was a daughter from a general's family, she would be curious about it too. It turned out so. Zhang Yunfeng was stunned, recalling the words of the masters that had said that the inheritance was for the one who was most suited to it. The person chosen would accept an inheritance best suited to the same for the second person, third persona, and so on. It's just that she didn't know what kind of inheritance Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had inherited. As for this, it was also not suitable for her to ask. After all, it was not just 1 but 6 different inheritance. If they had to say it, everyone would feel awkward. Hongzong, Zhiqing, I am really envious of you, Zhang Yunfeng said, also feeling a little depressed. If I could get the inheritance, how good it would be. The gap between me and you is really not small. Yunfeng, your talent and potential is also good, but this time the masters of the monument chose the ones who were most suited to their inheritance. We are still young, and there will be many opportunities in the future. You don't need to care about these. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled warmly. She felt that Zhang Yunfeng was broad-minded, not a stingy person, and they could get along very well. The 3 of you are finally back. Cui Haoyan's face was filled with a hearty smile, and his big hands directly patted on Gong Xiaoqing and other shoulders. You are now the most popular students in the college. You directly surpassed the cultivators from the 4 major families and got the inheritance. The college has now become famous, and this news has already spread wide. Even the principal and teachers are smiling. Now, they don't need to worry about enrolling students. I can't imagine how many cultivators are turning their heads and want to enter our college. No wonder I felt that Azure Water City was much more lively than before. It turned out to be so. Dong Fengyu's smile was elegant and charming. He was very familiar with this city, so he immediately found the difference in the city when he returned. Yes, you are now the idols whom many cultivators admire. It is really enviable. Cui Haoyan's eyes sparkled with envy. He and Gong Xiaoqing, as the leaders of 2 different groups, had almost the same standing. Today, he had been completely surpassed by Gong Xiaoqing, and the light of inheritance also proved that his talent was not as good as Gong Xiaoqing's. After a short period of depression, he adjusted his mentality. In any case, Gong Xiaoqing and the others were all his brother. He was also happy to see the strength of his brothers increase. Chapter 585 Heroes. Songlan College. After some time, Cui Haoyin said, I believe that the news of your return must have already reached the ears of the two principal and teachers. I will not delay you. You should go see them first. Hearing this, everyone nodded. They believed that the principals and teachers had been waiting for them to come back. Then we will go, and later we will all go to Yunyaju, Elegant Cloud Restaurant, for a meal together. Dong Fangyu smiled. Of course. Cui Haoyin nodded. We will be waiting for you in the dormitory. Good. When Bailey Hong Zhuang and the others went to the principal's room to see Run Tianxiong and Huan Chuyu, they saw Lu Huaiyin and Fu Hong Bo standing downstairs waiting for them. They are finally here. Seeing the faces of Bailey Hong Zhuang and others, Lu Huaiyin's face showed a happy smile, and they all immediately greeted Ren Tianxiong and Huang Chuyu. Bailey Hong Zhuang and others walked before Ren Tianxiong and the other three people. I have seen the principals and teachers. Get up. You are the heroes of our Songlan College. Ren Tianxiong's face was filled with a gratifying smile. Thinking of the demonic beast tide from before, Ren Tianxiong had always been frowning. Now, the sorrow disappeared from Ren Tianxiong's face, replaced by joy and gratification. Although Gong Shaoqing and others came back only today, the news of them getting the inheritance had already been spread. During this time, many people had come to congratulate him. The students of their college's special enrollment students had directly defeated the outstanding children from the cultivating families when competing for inheritance. This was a very outstanding achievement. Others may be happy or unhappy. As the principal of the college, he was the happiest to see the school become more famous. And Gong Shaoqing and the other four people were obviously the heroes of their college. If it was not for them, the reputation of their college would not be so loud now. Although the former Songlan College was quite famous, it was only in this area. During this time, the scope of their influence had obviously expanded by a lot. Listening to Ren Tianxiong's words, the faces of Bailey Hong Zhuang and the other people also showed smiles. The principal has said it well. Now you're already the representatives of our college. Chu Wanyu smiled kindly. He was sincerely happy to see Bailey Hong Zhuang and other people achieve such a result. You came back directly after accepting the inheritance? Nothing happened after that. Lu Huaiyin asked them. Bailey Hong Zhuang and others shook their heads slightly. No, nothing happened afterward. When we left the monument, there were only a few people left in the miasma forest. Lu Huaiyin was relieved at hearing this. They had previously planned to wait outside the monument for Bailey Hong Zhuang and others, but they didn't know how long it would take them to accept the inheritance. In addition, there were many things in the college that needed to be dealt with. After some hesitation, they still decided to come back first. After all, they had initially taken the students of the special enrollment cast to the forest just for the blue-level mission, and everything that had happened afterward was completely beyond their expectations. Therefore, the amount of time spent in the Luoyin Mountains had exceeded their expectations. That's good. Lu Huaiyin nodded with relief. When we saw you come back safely, we were also relieved. Ren Tianxiong smiled kindly. You must have worked hard while getting back. So, go back and rest early. Thank you, Principal. Chapter 586 Stone Door. Primordial Chaos Ring. Bailey Hong Zhuang and the other four people left after hearing the praises of the principals and the teachers. The reason why the principals and teachers had seen them now was just confirm their safety, but there was nothing to explain to him. In fact, they have achieved this feat today because of their one accomplishments, but that Songlan College had also benefited. As students of the college, they were a part of the college. The principals and teachers would naturally be proud of their achievements. Everything is done. We can finally go back to rest. Xia Zhiqing's face was full of excitement. They had not had a good rest during the month ever since they had set off for the Luoyin Mountains. Now back to the college. She missed her new dormitory very much. She had gone to the Luoyin Mountains after passing the assessment, and she had not even had the time to see her new dormitory. Looking at Xia Zhiqing's excitement, everyone smiled happily. They really should go back to the dormitory to rest, and then gather together for a meal. Xiaoji Qing's room was next to Bai Junyu's. She had already gotten her room assigned in the special enrollment dormitory. Now, she finally had the opportunity to lie in the bed. After Bailey Hong Zhuang returned to her own room, she felt a little tired after the long period of exhaustion. Just as Bailey Hong Zhuang was ready to rest for a while, Xiao Hei's excited voice sounded next to Bailey Hong Zhuang's ears. "Master!" A stone door opened in the chaos ring. Hearing this, Bailey Hong Zhuang felt a little strange. Since getting the chaos ring, in exception to getting the magical cultivation method from it, she hadn't gotten anything else. On the contrary, the large space in the chaos ring was of great help to her. Bai Shi could cultivate in the chaos ring, which undoubtedly saved her a lot of trouble. Although there were not many things in the chaos ring, with the Huan Mo Jing, devil-calling scripture, Bailey Hong Zhuang did not dare to think of the chaos ring lightly. It was precisely because of devil-calling scripture that her strength could be increased so fast. It was obvious how extraordinary this devil-calling scripture that the chaos ring had provided her was. "Master, go see it. There must surely be some treasure in the stone room of the chaos ring. Usually the stone doors are always closed, but after you broke through to the innate realm, the door opened." Xiao Hei's face revealed his excitement. Although they had stayed in the chaos ring for so long, they were not clear about the meaning of chaos ring's existence. Their only certainty is that the chaos ring was really powerful. Bailey Hong Zhuang was moved, and she entered the space in chaos ring, once again entering the palace of black and white. Yu Baishur was now cultivating with his eyes closed in the corner of the palace. From the faintly rising fluctuations, it could be seen that Baishur was undergoing a breakthrough. She believed that it would still take some time before he successfully broke through. "Where is the stone room?" Bailey Hong Zhuang asked. There were many stone rooms in this palace, which was intricate from what she had seen. Except for the stone room with the devil-calling scripture that had been opened, there were no other open stone room doors. "Master, you come with us." Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai quickly walked towards the stone rooms in front of Bailey Hong Zhuang, and she followed the two little guys into the depths of the palace. Chapter 587 Mysterious Old Man. Inscription: Master, it is here. Xiao Hei stood in front of the stone room door and looked at Bailey Hong Zhuang. Bailey Hong Zhuang walked up to the door of the stone room, and she found that this stone room was right next to the room which had the demonic calling scriptures. "Kacha!" Bailey Hong Zhuang slowly pushed open the stone room door. Like Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai had said, the previously closed stone room had now opened. As the door of the stone room door was pushed open, Bailey Hong Zhuang saw the situation inside. In her clear eyes, there was a touch of shock and disbelief. Bailey Hong Zhuang's expression revealed her incredulity as she looked inside. How is it possible? Bailey Hong Zhuang muttered to herself, and she couldn't believe what she was seeing before her eyes. Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai were also wide-eyed. "Is there a mistake here? This must be a trick. There's a person in here. Are you pulling my leg?" The always well-behaved Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai at this moment, after seeing the situation inside, couldn't help but burst out with foul language. It was really impossible for them to express the shock of their hearts without using such language. It was a large stone room, and inside a man with a head full of silver hair was busy. There were many materials and tools placed on the big table. The old man looked kind, full of wisdom, and at first glance he gave a feeling like a gentle wind, soft and warm, giving people a feeling of peace. However, the old man seemed to never have heard the words of Bailey Hong Zhuang and the others. His hands were constantly moving, and there was mastery in his every move natural, revealing a smoothness from years of experience. After seeing the tools and materials on the table, Bailey Hong Zhuang had already judged that the old man in front of her was an inscriptionist. Inscriptions, this was a very powerful means. Like medicine and alchemy, it was of great help to cultivators. However, medicinal herbs could be used by the cultivators only by ingesting it, while inscriptions provided external assistance. For example, imprinting an inscription on a weapon would greatly enhance the strength of the weapon. Compared with the distinguished alchemists, inscriptionists were extremely rare, and each inscriptionist was someone others were eagerly trying to please. Because inscriptioning was a very demanding profession, it needed meticulousness and patience, and ordinary people simply couldn't come in contact with them. In her past life, Bailey Hongzhuang had also come in contact with inscriptionists and had a very strong respect for this profession. However, the elders in her family were all proficient in alchemy, not inscriptions, so she had always put all of her energy into alchemy and medicine. She could never have thought that she would actually see an inscriptionist in the Chaos Ring. Her understanding of inscriptions was not deep, but from the man's vivid and fluid movements, she was sure that this inscriptionist's inscription must be superb. He was absolutely a master. Otherwise, the intricate inscriptions would never be so easily drawn under his hands. Predecessor, Bailey Hongzhuang greeted slowly. The old man did not reach, and Bailey Hongzhuang could only greet him again, predecessor. However, the old man did not respond, as if he had never heard Bailey Hongzhuang's voice. What is this all about? Why aren't you responding? Xiaohe was slightly angry, even if the old man looked quite extraordinary, but wasn't he being too rude? Chapter 588 Learning. Inscriptions. Bailey Hongzhuang carefully looked at the old man in front of her. She had always felt there was something wrong with this situation. The Chaos Ring had existed for countless years, and this stone room had been closed. Did this old man not need any basic living necessities? There was no food in this stone room, no bed, no living supplies. Unless this old man was not a real person at all. When this idea emerged in her mind, she became more and more aware that her guess was most likely correct. Otherwise, if a person had been locked in this stone room, wasn't that crazy? Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang went straight to the old man and waved her hands in front of the old man. The old man did not react at all. Master, what's the matter? Xiaohe's eyes sparkled with doubts. Is it that this old man is not real, just an illusion? Xiaohe asked after a brief pause of surprise. Previously, the old man had appeared quite suddenly, and it was too shocking. Now pondering on it, they understood. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Yes. So, the existence of this old man. Is it for Master to learn inscriptions? Xiao Bai's eyes shone brightly. The old man had suddenly appeared here, and this could be the only reason. As soon as this was said, Xiaohe and Bailey Hongzhuang looked at each other. They both thought so too. After all, in exception to this possibility, they could no longer think of any other reason. Inscriptions are a very great skill. Congratulations to Master, Xiaohe said excitedly. Bailey Hongzhuang gazed deeply at the step-by-step and precise teachings of the old man, and a hint of excitement also appeared in her eyes. If she could learn inscriptions, then it would be of great help to her. This Chaos Ring is really amazing. It was difficult to hide the lamentation on her beautiful and exquisite face. So far, the Chaos Ring had not revealed all of its treasures, but each thing up to now had made her marvel. Even just inscription, she couldn't even imagine how many people wanted to learn inscriptions, but there was no one to teach. Inscription was much more complicated than alchemy. The reason why she did not learn inscriptions in her previous life was that her energy was limited. If she had learned the two together, she may not be proficient in either. So, she had learned alchemy. In this world, her alchemy was already outstanding, and she had its understanding, and she also had the energy to learn inscriptions. It was a godsend. When Bailey Hongzhuang came to the side of the old man, nothing happened. However, when Bailey Hongzhuang approached the table, a new table appeared immediately, exactly same as the table in front of the old man. Obviously, this table had been prepared for her. At the same time, the old man stopped his previous movement and began to tell the characteristics and functions of inscriptions to Bailey Hongzhuang. He was actually teaching it to her. Bailey Hongzhuang's bright eyes only became brighter and brighter. With such an inscription master as her teacher, it would definitely be easier for her to learn inscriptions than others. In the following days, Bailey Hong Zhuang cultivated and improved in the cultivation tower while learning inscriptions in the Chaos Ring. Her days were filled, and her growth was very obvious. However, inscription was obviously not something one could do half-heartedly and without experience. Even if it was Bailey Hong Zhuang, it would take time and patience to learn everything from scratch. Chapter 589 Breakthrough. Baishur, because of her dedication to cultivation and to studying inscription, there was no time for Bailey Hong Zhuang to take on any new tasks. Fortunately, she had received a lot of points from the hands of Wei Mei Dai and the others. It was enough for Bailey Hong Zhuang to squander it for a while. Di Bei Chun found that Bailey Hong Zhuang had become extremely busy after returning, and almost no one could ever see Bailey Hong Zhuang. When he thinks about it, he only thought that Bailey Hong Zhuang was cultivating so persistently was perhaps because of the pressure from the 4 cultivation family's cultivators. Not only Bailey Hong Zhuang, even Gong Shaoqing and the others were working very hard. On this day, Bailey Hong Zhuang did not go to cultivate, but stayed in her room. Not for others, only because Baishur would successfully break through today. The time that Baishur has been in closed-door cultivation this time is really long. I wonder what level he can break through to. Xiao Hei's eyes sparkled with curiosity. After all, Baishur was the Beast Master. Baishur had only been born for a short while, and his time of cultivation was also very short. However, his efforts compared to his cultivation level were negligible. This guy was a very anomalous beast. All he had to do was swallow demonic beast cores to enhance his strength. He believed that Baishur would have a good promotion in his strength through this breakthrough. He should be able to break through to the innate realm. Previously also, this guy had been very proud. Xiaobai guessed. Hearing this, Bailey Hong Zhuang's was also silent, her heart bitter. She had to work so hard to cultivate. If she had not gotten the mini Yuan Ligua in the ancient monument, she was afraid that she would still be unsure of how long it would take to break through to the innate realm. Now, Baishur just had to cultivate by eating demonic beast cores. Now, with this breakthrough, he would break through to the innate realm. Wasn't this gap too big? The master was not comparable to the contractual beast, saying this was also not wrong. Having said that, Bailey Hong Zhuang showed a happy smile. Why would she be unwilling for Baishur's, her own contractual beast's, breakthrough? Previously, Baishur's strength was also not enough, but he had only been born for a short period. Now he could shock people. After all, in the past, Gong Shaoqing and the others regarded Baishur as a contractual beast with only an ornamental effect. If a beast master were to be recognized as such, naturally it would be unwilling. Just as Bailey Hong Zhuang, Xiao Hei, and Xiao Bai were thinking these, a powerful aura came from the palace in the Chaos Ring. Baishur, who had been in closed-door cultivation for a long time, suddenly opened his eyes, the pair of eyes sparkling with brilliance. And as Baishur woke up, that aura dissipated. Seeing that Baishur had awakened, the faces of Bailey Hong Zhuang and the 2 fluffy beasts also showed a touch of joy, and Baishur appeared in the room in the next moment. Master! When Baishur saw Bailey Hong Zhuang, he directly jumped into the latter's arms. He was used to being in his master's arms. Looking at Baishur's actions, Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai glanced at each other. This guy was still the most favorite of master. Bailey Hong Zhuang touched Baishur's head. The white hair felt very soft, and she smiled. Baishur, you had a breakthrough this time? Baishur nodded and broke through to the innate realm. Listening to these words, Bailey Hong Zhuang's smile was bright. It seems that Xiao Bai and Xiao Hei's speculation was really correct. Baishur had actually broken through to the innate realm directly. Just as Bailey Hong Zhuang was ready to continue speaking, suddenly a knock on the door rang out. Bailey Hong Zhuang, holding Baishur, went to open the door. When she opened the door, she saw the signature charming and evil smile of Di Bei Chun. Chapter 595 Level Hong Border. Bai Shi. Wifey, I haven't seen you for these few days. Did you also miss your hubby? Bailey Hong Zhuang was stunned at Di Bei Chen's shameless words. This guy's slickness was really getting better. Too busy, didn't think about you, Bailey Hong Zhuang said, and took 2 steps back, letting Di Bei Chun enter the room, and Di Bei Chun close the door behind him. Wifey really made me worry, and she is busy being in closed-door cultivation all day. I see you're working very hard. I'm also trying to improve my strength as soon as possible. Bailey Hong Zhuang blinked. During this time, she had put all her energy into learning inscription and improving her cultivation. There were not many opportunities for her to meet with Di Bei Chun. However, a part of her reason for this was also because of their relationship. She believed that Han Xiling was not someone who just put on an arrogant air. The previous things must have made Han Xiling very angry. Even if she had returned to Tiangang Zone, she would not give up on trying to make trouble for her. Due to this, she must also improve her strength as soon as possible. Only in this way, in the future, when facing the people sent by Han Xiling, she could stand bold and firm. Seeing the tenacity of Bailey Hong Zhuang, with her expression with a little bit of seriousness and apology, Di Bei Chun smiled and said, I am just joking. Wifey does not have to take it seriously. The next moment, Di Bei Chun's eyes couldn't help but fall on Bai Shi, who was still being held by Bailey Hong Zhuang. During this time, he had not seen Bai Shi appear. Now that Bai Shi had appeared, he had already succeeded in breaking through. Bai Shi's strength broke through to this level. Di Bei Chun's lips curved a bit more, and there was a bit of unconcealable happiness in his bright eyes. Bai Shi is the Beastmaster, so presumably each breakthrough would have no small progress in his strength. Bailey Hong Zhuang nodded slightly, and there was a bit of pride and joy in her smile. Bai Shi has broken through to the innate realm. This progress is much faster than mine. Hearing those words, Di Bei Chun gazed at Bai Shi, and in the deep and bright starry eyes flashed some thoughtfulness, as he said, Bai Shi should have broken through to the 5th level of Hong Border. This progress is indeed great. Bai Shi's eyes widened. He had still been thinking of selling Ming. He didn't expect Di Bei Chun to see through him. Bailey Hong Zhuang also paused. She only thought that Bai Shi progressed faster than her. She hadn't expected Bai Shi to reach the 5th level of Hong Border. This progress was too much against the norm. Bai Shi, you broke through to the 5th level of Hong Border? Bailey Hong Zhuang asked. Although he had not said anything, he had directly been seen through by Di Bei Chun, and so Bai Shi very proudly nodded. He too was very satisfied with his own progress. Seeing that Bai Shi admitted, the smile in Bailey Hong Zhuang's eyes also deepened a bit. Haha, Bai Shi, you are really amazing. She had noticed that she could not see through Bai Shi's level. It was because Bai Shi's strength was a lot higher than hers, so she cannot see through it. Listening to Bailey Hong Zhuang's praise, Bai Shi seemed to be excited and shyly dropped his head in front of Bailey Hong Zhuang. Extremely cute. However, when this scene was in front of Di Bei Chun, this was not the case. All along, Bai Shi had been a demonic beast who was extremely helpful to Bailey Hong Zhuang, but he did not expect that this guy would be a pervert. This was going on, but where was he touching? That was a place that even he hadn't touched. And this little guy had touched it first? No, this was absolutely not good. Thinking of this, Di Bei Chun directly reached out and took Bai Shi out from Bailey Hong Zhuang's hands. Chapter 591 Return to Feng Bo Country, suddenly picked up by Di Bei Chun. Bai Shi couldn't help but struggle before extending his 4 small claws, his eyes full of hope as he looked at Bailey Hong Zhuang. Looking at Di Bei Chun's actions, an expression of confusion appeared in Bailey Hong Zhuang's eyes as she said, Di Bei Chun, what are you doing? Di Bei Chun's enchanting face had a charming smile. As he held Bai Shi securely in his own arms, I just think that this little guy is very cute, so holding it for a hug. Oh, Bailey Hong Zhuang smiled and nodded. Bai Shi's furry little body really was cute. Even if she had been with Bai Shi for quite some time, She had never felt that Baishir was not cute. Bei-chan held Baishir in his arms, and his big hands touched Baishir's fur. He felt that although this was the Beastmaster, the fur was exceptionally supple and shiny. Baishir's 4 limbs were constantly struggling. He didn't like being held by an adult man. However, even though Baishir struggled, Bei-chan always held him with a smile as he said, "This little guy really recognizes his master. He is unwilling even if I hold him." "Master!" Baishir cried out silently. Although his expression was wronged, Bailey Hong Zhuang did not notice the mourning in his heart at all. Bei-chan sat down beside Bailey Hong Zhuang and said, "Hong Zhuang, after a few days, the college will have holidays. We should return to Fengbo country. How?" Her black and white phoenix eyes held a color of strangeness. Bailey Hong Zhuang asked out loud, "Do you still have a need to return to Fengbo?" Bei-chan nodded, but then shook his head, his black and bright, starry eyes shimmering with a playful expression. "I have eaten many losses in Fengbo for at least 3 years. Going now and visiting is also a good choice." Bei-chan then gazed at Bailey Hong Zhuang. "Do you not want to go back and see?" Bailey Hong Zhuang clearly understood in her mind that whether it was her or Bei-chan, their past life in Fengbo was unbearable. They had finally left that place, and there would be a good show if they went back. "You are right. We really should go back." Bailey Hong Zhuang's lips curved up in an enchanting smile. She was sure that after going back this time, there would be no need to return to Fengbo in the future. For the Fengbo country or for the general's house that she had lived in for 15 years, she had no enthusiastic feelings. The previous Bailey Hong Zhuang was dead, and the people who had bullied Bailey Hong Zhuang had already been punished. She had no more feeling in her heart. Xiao He and Xiao Bai's hearts also felt quite calm after hearing that they were returning to Fengbo. In the beginning, everyone had laughed at their master and Bei-chan, who had been crippled at the time, saying they were a natural pair. Now, they didn't know how they would react to seeing their master and Bei-chan. After 7 days, Bailey Hong Zhuang and Bei-chan stood at the entrance of Songlan College, and Xia Zhiqing and others stood by them. "We have a month of vacation. We will see you again in a month." Bailey Hong Zhuang smiled. The college will have vacations in winter, and many students would take this opportunity to go back to visit their loved ones. "Okay, see you in a month." All the others nodded. They would return to the college soon, within a month. When Bailey Hong Zhuang and Bei-chan set off for Fengbo, Xiao Zifan also saw them and couldn't help but walk to their side. "Ah, Wang Ya, Wang Fei, you're also going to return to Fengbo?" Xiao Zifan asked with a smile. Chapter 592 Cheeky, Bei-chan seeing Xiao Zifan again. Bailey Hong Zhuang's face also showed a touch of joy. Since she had come to the college, she had been busy with cultivating and other things, so she had rarely seen Xiao Zifan. "Yeah, these vacations we have nowhere to go, so it is better to go back." Bailey Hong Zhuang smiled. "You're also going back? Then, why don't we go together?" Hearing this, Xiao Zifan glanced at Bei-chan and smiled. "I will not disturb you. I just saw you coming here and wanted to greet you." Bailey Hong Zhuang nodded slightly. In fact, if Xiao Zifan were to really going back with them, she was afraid that Xiao Zifan would feel very embarrassed. Not far away, Xin Yuan Huan's gaze also fell onto Bei-chan and Bailey Hong Zhuang. In Fengbo's imperial city, he had been like a star in the sky, but since he came to this college, he had lost his former glory. Instead, Bailey Hong Zhuang and Bei-chan had become the focus of attention. Since he had seen Bei-chan healed and also become a special enrollment student, he had been very jealous of him. In any case, he must not offend Bei-chan. Seeing that appearance that would stand out even in a crowd of 10,000, it had already proved that Bei-chan's background was extraordinary. He really didn't understand why the previous Bei-chan let them treat him like mud all the time, but now he had become existence far above him. In this regard, his father had not clearly told him the reason, so he hoped that he could understand everything when he returned this time. For Bailey Hong Zhuang, Xin Yuan Huan's gaze was a bit more regretful. Previously, Bailey Hong Zhuang had been his fiancée. He hadn't expected that she would now become a perfect pair with Di Bei-chun. Nowadays, with the improvement in Bailey Hong Zhuang's strength, he felt that Bailey Hong Zhuang's charm was getting harder to stop. Even if he was dreaming, he understood that there was no possibility between him and Bailey Hong Zhuang. In a sentence, this was also the thing he regretted most in his life. Feeling the burning gaze behind her, Bailey Hong Zhuang couldn't help but turn around and look behind. After seeing Xian Yuan Huan, there was a hint of indifference in her phoenix eyes. "Wifey, let's go." Di Bei-chan was already sitting on his horse as he reached out. He smiled, looking at Bailey Hong Zhuang. The sun shone golden behind him, and a layer of sunlight framed Di Bei-chan's body. The beautiful face and temperament became even more extraordinary in front of Bailey Hong Zhuang's eyes. However, the next second, Bailey Hong Zhuang couldn't help but frown. What about my horse? They had clearly bought 2 horses. Why was there only one left now? She thought about all the things that had happened. How did the horse disappear? Listening to Bailey Hong Zhuang's question, the smile on Di Bei-chan's lips curved up slightly. "Wifey, I saw that Xiao Zifan was alone. Even his horse had not been readied, so I gave your horse to him. Anyway, we are only 2 people. We can even ride together. What do you think?" Bailey Hong Zhuang turned around, and true to his word, Xiao Zifan, who was not far away, was holding her horse. Turning her head, Bailey Hong Zhuang's eyes narrowed as she stared at the smiling Di Bei-chun sitting over the horse. This guy's face was getting thicker and thicker. "It's not very comfortable for us to ride a horse together. I will go buy a horse again." However, when Bailey Hong Zhuang turned and was ready to buy a horse, Di Bei-chun directly pulled her hand as he held Bailey Hong Zhuang directly in front of him. Unable to free herself from Di Bei-chun's hold, Bailey Hong Zhuang became a bit angry. "Di Bei-chun, you..." Chapter 593, Why Haven't I Seen Hey Moo? Di Bei-chen's hands wrapped around Bailey Hong Zhuang's waist, and his lips were close to her ears as he said, "Wifey, the students of the college are all going home today to meet their families. There are not enough horses for them all. If you were to buy another one, what will others do?" The warmth of his breath tickled Bailey Hong Zhuang's ears, and a different kind of sensation rose in her body. This awkward contact immediately made Bailey Hong Zhuang's cheeks flush red. Di Bei-chen looked at the reddish earlobe of Bailey Hong Zhuang, and the smile in his eyes gradually deepened. Although his wife was not afraid of anything usually, in this kind of situation, she became shy and rigid. "Di Bei-chun, let go." Unable to stand the ambiguous atmosphere, Bailey Hong Zhuang couldn't help but say this. This guy was a shameless rogue. He had caught her in a moment of weakness. It was really abominable. "Wifey said that, but unfortunately, your husband can't agree." Di Bei-chen's hands were around her, holding Bailey Hong Zhuang, and with his big hands holding the reins, he drove straight forward. Ta-ta-ta. The sound of horseshoes sounded, and Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Bei-chen gradually increased their speed to become one with the wind, but they were in a calm state of mind, and they were not in a hurry. Along the way, Di Bei-chen and Bailey Hong Zhuang admired the surrounding scenery. Both of them put all their efforts on cultivating during normal days. There were a few times when they would be as idle as now. Therefore, both of them were enjoying the journey. "Di Bei-chen, you haven't gone back to Tiangangzong since then?" Bailey Hong Zhuang couldn't help but ask. It had been a long time since Di Bei-chen came to Songlan College. And even though Di Bei-chun had already stabilized his position, but he had not stayed in the sect for such a long time, she was afraid that the changes there would not be small. Di Bei-chun's expression changed a little. "Would wifey like to accompany me next time?" Bailey Hong Zhuang shook her head. "I'm just worried that it will have an impact on you since you've been out here for so long." Even if Di Bei-chun's master was the sovereign of Tiangangzong and Di Bei-chun himself was the young lord of Tiangangzong, now that the sovereign had left the sect for so long, and Di Bei-chun had also not stayed in the sect for years, the matters in the sect had been handed over to the several elders to deal with. In the long run, this was not good. Listening to Bailey Hong Zhuang, Di Bei-chun was happy, as he said, "Hey Mu has always informed me about the things in the sect. I am not there, but I also understand the situation of the sect. Unless there are some very important matters that I must go back for, there's nothing to worry about at other times. Wifey doesn't need to worry." "So that's how it is," Bailey Hong Zhuang said lightly. There was Hey Mu around Di Bei-chun, who was always dedicatedly doing things for him. He had saved him a lot of trouble. "Why haven't I seen Hey Mu recently?" Bailey Hong Zhuang raised her eyebrows in confusion. Thinking of when she first met Di Bei-chun, Hey Mu had always stayed by Di Bei-chun's side. Obviously, Hey Mu should always be nearby Di Bei-chun, but she didn't know why. Ever since Di Bei-chun came to the college, she had only seen Hey Mu once. Di Bei-chun's expression changed a bit, and there was something a little bit unnatural about it. "I recently sent Hey Mu to do some things." Bailey Hong Zhuang looked suspiciously in Di Bei-chun's eyes. She kept feeling that there was something wrong with Di Bei-chun this time, but she couldn't put a finger on what was wrong, so she could only let it go. Chapter 594, Call Me Husband, Wifey. Di Bei-chun called out softly. "Well," Bailey Hong Zhuang's eyebrows rose. "What's wrong?" "Wifey, you see that I've called you wife for so long, but you haven't ever called me husband. Why don't you call me by it?" In Di Bei-chun's eyes, the light of anticipation shone. Before, when Bailey Hong Zhuang's heart was not on him at all, this was naturally impossible. Now that Bailey Hong Zhuang was also in love with him, he had been waiting for those words for a long time. Bailey Hong Zhuang felt awkward. Di Bei-chun's sudden request was beyond her expectations. When she thought of the word husband, she could not say it out loud. "No," Bailey Hong Zhuang said. "Wifey, you only need to call out to me, how?" Di Bei-chun's smirking face had a playful smile. "Just once." "No, wifey, this thing makes husband very sad. There are no other people nearby. Don't be shy." Di Bei-chun's eyebrows were furrowed, and he deliberately looked at her with a sad expression, his eyes looking at Bailey Hong Zhuang with anticipation. Bailey Hong Zhuang was stunned at Di Bei-chun's expression, which was selling Ming, and in her heart she was helpless. In fact, with Di Bei-chun's handsome face persuading her, it was hard for her to either yield or refuse. However, to say something like this, Bailey Hong Zhuang was also unable. Seeing the expression of Bailey Hong Zhuang, Di Bei-chun's eyebrows rose. His wife's reaction was not unexpected to him. After all, with how shy his wife is, it was impossible for her to say this. Thinking of this, Di Bei-chun continued, "Wifey, you always call me Di Bei-chun. It is a bit too distant. According to my opinion, how about you remove my family name when addressing me?" Listening to his words, Bailey Hong Zhuang thought for a moment. She had always called him Di Bei-chun, which indeed did not fit their relationship. And seeing that Bailey Hong Zhuang promised, Di Bei-chun's heart was happy for a while. "Wifey, do you promise this?" Bailey Hong Zhuang nodded, looking at Di Bei-chun's excitement for this. Her heart also felt it was very funny. The young lord of the Tian Gang Zone was so happy for such a small thing. If it were to spread, she didn't know how many people would joke about this. "Wifey, in that case, why don't you call me first?" Bailey Hong Zhuang's looked into Di Bei-chun's eyes, stunned. "Call you the next time." "Please." One Bei-chun. Listening to Bailey Hong Zhuang's ethereal and gentle voice, Di Bei-chun's eyes were bright, and on his handsome face instantly appeared an expression of deep delight. "Wifey, why don't you call me again?" Bailey Hong Zhuang turned to look straight forward. She had no plans to take care of this guy. Di Bei-chun smiled and looked at Bailey Hong Zhuang's back, feeling that it was especially fun to tease his own wife. In the past, he never understood why those lovers were so happy when they were together. That is, until now, when he finally understood. Looking at the slender and graceful white figure in front of him, Di Bei-chun's eyes were filled with a touch of gentleness. Today, he had other wishes. He only hoped to be able to grow old with Bailey Hong Zhuang. With the two people not rushing, the journey that would usually take only 7 days, but the two of them took more than 10 days. However, the two did not feel that this road was long, but in fact felt that the time had passed by very fast. This was the most relaxed period of time between the two. Finally, at the noon on this day, the two arrived at Phong Bo Country's imperial city. Chapter 595 arrived at the imperial city. Imperial City, Phong Bo Country. The long streets stretched for miles, crowded with people, endless pedestrians, and the sounds of shops selling. As soon as the two entered through the city gate, the overwhelming hustle and bustle were heard by the two people. Everywhere in the imperial city highlighted the prosperity of Phong Bo. Looking at this familiar scene in front of her, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was full of emotions. For this place, she did not have many good memories, but there was also the sadness in her heart from the former Bailey Hongzhuang. The only memory worthy of her happiness was that here she met Di Bei Chun. Di Bei Chun noticed the slightly complicated expression on Bailey Hongzhuang. He also understood the underlying meaning of her expression. "Wifey, I will be by your side in the future." Di Bei Chun looked at her, his voice revealing seriousness and firmness. In the past, Bailey Hongzhuang had been unhappy, but in the future, he will make Bailey Hongzhuang happy. Listening to the consolation in Di Bei Chun's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved upwards, her face bright and charming like a bright moon, the previous windy and cloudy expression disappearing. "I know." Her faint and gentle voice held trust in Di Bei Chun, and her extremely beautiful face was flowing with confidence. In the past, she did not think of these two seriously, although her memories were clear. After all, she was not the one who experienced it. What's more, those people had already disappeared completely from in front of her and would never appear again in the future again. She just felt that there seemed to be no big connection between Phong Bo and her. Originally, the general's house had an inseparable relationship with her, but after knowing the truth about her life's experience, this thin connection had completely disappeared. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Bei Chun held Bailey Hongzhuang's hands and smiled and said, "Let's go back to the prince's mansion. We haven't come back here for a while." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. "Well, I want to go back and see." The two speeded up and rushed towards the Chun Palace, where they still had some memories of. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Bei Chun walked together in the streets of the imperial city, the gazes of the people fell on them, either strange or awed. Many people had seen their appearance and stretched their necks to look at the perfect couple that had appeared suddenly. In front of their eyes, a man and woman stood side by side. The man was wearing pale gold robes, and silver bamboo were embroidered along the line of the robes. Under the sunlight, they reflected a little. His body was tall and straight, and his appearance handsome, extremely handsome. His perfect and impeccable face had a doting smile, his aura bright and wise. His one look could penetrate one's heart. In particular, the enchanting smile that was slightly evil made the surrounding woman sigh after getting a glimpse. The woman was dressed in a white gauze skirt, like a willow. Her body was thin and wonderful, graceful. Especially that face which could even fell cities. Different from the gentles of ordinary woman, this woman's eyebrows showed her tenacity and will, which with her perfect and moving face added a touch of uniqueness, making her unforgettable. Walking alongside each other, they were like a golden boy and girl, a perfect match. Like a beautiful scenery, they attracted everyone's attention. Everyone was wondering where these wonderful people came from. They were so good. They had lived here for most of their lives and had never seen such a match. Chapter 596, Only Want Wifey to See It. Ah, isn't that Chun Wangye and Wang Fei? A merchant said after looking carefully at Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Bei Chun. He had only seen the Wangye and Wang Fei one time. It was only because the appearance of the two was really unforgettable that he recognized them. But he was not so sure now, because wasn't Wangye a cripple? The man in front of him was clearly walking. How could he be Chen Wangye? With the voice of the merchant falling, everyone else was also stunned. Now they only thought that the two were very familiar, but they had never thought that it was the Wang Ye and Wang Fei. Because appearance can be similar, but it was impossible for Wang Ye to stand up with his disability. Yes, it is the Chun Wang Ye and Wang Fei. I haven't seen them for a while. Wang Fei seems to be more beautiful. The Wang Ye is also getting more and more handsome. But how can Wang Ye suddenly stand up? The proprietress of a shop was stunned, and her eyes followed them. It was too unbelievable to see these two people. As the proprietress said, Bailey Hong Zhuang really had become more beautiful. After her growth in this period, and her study in the art of Go, calligraphy, and the zither, her temperament had become more graceful. Just looking at her gave others an indescribable feeling of dignity and charm. My God, the Wang Ye and Wang Fei are really a too-perfect match. Who dares to say that they are jokes? I say that those people don't have eyes. The people of Imperial City were all completely shocked. The previous Chun Wang Ye gave them a very sorrowful feeling. If it was not that the Wang Ye could not stand up, then the Wang Ye would have been the deserved first beautiful man in the Imperial City. At this point, how many women had sighed? And now, the Chun Wang Ye had actually stood up. This temperament, this style, even the Crown Prince Xian Yuan Huan could not be compared with him. Some of the people who had come to the Imperial City from the outside, after listening to the discussions of the crowd, their faces showed a curious expression. Why are you looking at them so strangely? You don't know who they are? After the proprietress heard those words, she once again spoke up. Everyone knows that in the beginning, the Wang Ye was a disabled person who could not even stand up. Everyone knows that he was a waste. Listening to the proprietress's narrative, some people who were not aware of the two also showed amazement. No one ever thought that these two people, who were originally laughed at by everyone, would turn out to be so excellent. There was no one who could associate them with their previous looks. Oh my God, the Wang Ye is so handsome. I just want him to stand so I can admire him. Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Bei Chun were walking along the road, and many women on both sides of the street were stunned after seeing Di Bei Chun. The street seemed to change to spring for Di Bei Chun. In the past, they felt that Di Bei Chun was a crippled person who could not stand up. Although he was extremely beautiful, they did not dare to be with him. Today, Di Bei Chun had stood up. He was undoubtedly the ideal person in their minds. Now, if they didn't grasp the opportunity, should they wait for an auspicious time? Bei Chun, it seems that your charm is not small. Bailey Hong Zhuang's lips slightly curved. Her face had a teasing expression. Di Bei Chun's smile widened slightly, and he leaned his head close to Bailey Hong Zhuang. For husband's charm, I only want wifey to see it. His actions and audible words directly shattered the fragile heart of the surrounding women. Their faces showed disappointment. Chapter 597. You are mine, only mine. Di Bei Chun's eyes swept over the around them. The next moment, under everyone's curious gazes, he directly held Bailey Hong Zhuang's hands and lessened the distance between the two of them, as if telling others to back off, telling the intimate relationship between the two to the people around. Although Di Bei Chun and Bailey Hong Zhuang were already a couple, such a bold move still made many of the people present show a look of discomposure. In this age, with conservative people, this kind of action was really rare. However, after some young lovers saw Di Bei Chun's actions, their faces also showed their envy. I heard that the relationship between Chun Wang Ye and Wang Fei was very good. I see them now, and I realized how good their feelings are. Yeah, it is too enviable. I wonder if I can find a person in this life. A person who can resonate with my heart. Bailey Hong Zhuang was also shocked by Di Bei Chun's actions. In the beginning, she wanted to shake off Di Bei Chun's hand, but after thinking about it, she felt that it was unnecessary. She understood the feeling Di Bei Chun had for her and also understood her own heart. Since they had already decided to be together, then there was no need to fear the gazes of others, because they were a pair. Bailey Hong Zhuang had always been straightforward, and since she had decided to be together with Di Bei Chun, there was no need to cover it up. So, everyone could know clearly that they were together. Feeling Bailey Hong Zhuang also hold his hand, the smile on Di Bei Chen's lips widened slightly, and the pair of ink-like black eyes shone with unprecedented brightness. Di Bei Chen sped up, and holding Bailey Hong Zhuang's hand, they hurried back to the Chun Palace. At the same time, the news that Chun Wangya had stood up also spread quickly throughout the imperial city. 1 told 10, 10 told 100, and in a short period of time, all the people of the imperial city had already known the news. Back at the Chun Palace, Bailey Hong Zhuang couldn't help but wonder out loud. Bei Chun, why did you suddenly start walking so fast? Di Bei Chen's expression was slightly awkward, and there was a bit of dissatisfaction in his expression. You didn't notice, but all those men had been looking at you with those eyes. I couldn't stand it. That moment, he only felt all the men's eyes focused on Bailey Hong Zhuang. The covetous and fanciful eyes made him feel very upset. With Di Bei Chen's voice falling, Bailey Hong Zhuang couldn't help but chuckle. Nonsense, how can you say that? Di Bei Chen stepped forward and approached Bailey Hong Zhuang, standing before her. In my opinion, they were. Bailey Hong Zhuang took a step back, and her back was now stuck to the wall. You are too overbearing. Di Bei Chen stretched out his right hand and reached for Bailey Hong Zhuang's waist, pulling closer the distance between the two of them. I am such an overbearing person. You are mine, just mine. The voice was low and magnetic, vaguely revealing a bit of jealousy. His wife was so beautiful, he couldn't even count the men who had thoughts on her. He can't let any man have this chance. His wife was his, just his. Listening to Di Bei Chen's overbearing words that were like an oath, Bailey Hong Zhuang felt a bit helpless and funny, accompanied by a bit of joy. She had always known Di Bei Chen's pride, but she hadn't known that Di Bei Chen could be so overbearing. Seeing Bailey Hong Zhuang chuckle, Di Bei Chen's eyes became darker each passing second, and his voice became deeper and lower. Does wifey think? I am wrong. Chapter 598. Remember to close your eyes next time looking at Bailey Hong Zhuang's expression, full of fascination. Di Bei Chen's heat trembled, and his eyes involuntarily fell on Bailey Hong Zhuang's red lips. Every time he was so close to his wife, he had an urge to kiss her. He didn't know what kind of sweetness those red lips would have. She naturally noticed the dark and surging emotions in Di Bei Chen's eyes. Bailey Hong Zhuang's head hung low, and she intended to move Di Bei Chen's hand, escaping from this danger zone. However, Di Bei Chen had already discovered her plan, and he directly pulled Bailey Hong Zhuang close towards him. He could not let Bailey Hong Zhuang escape. The next moment, his handsome face leaned in close to Bailey Hong Zhuang's, as he directly tasted that place he had longed for. Bailey Hong Zhuang only felt a shadow over her, and Di Bei Chen attacked her lips, but it was filled with a bit of tenderness and love. Not waiting for Bailey Hong Zhuang to escape. Her lips were kissed by Di Bei Chen. The touch was soft and warm, just like the tenderness and warmth of Di Bei Chen, as if he couldn't wait for her to know his feelings, expressing his strong love. Bailey Hong Zhuang's eyes were wide open, and there was a huge blank in her brain. She didn't know what to do. She just stared at the perfect face of this magnificent beauty carved by God himself, kissing her with emotion. His kiss was gentle, tossing and turning, warm and affectionate. His kiss was also warm. The hot temperature was so close to her, letting her feel his strong and warm affection. Di Bei Chen pulled Bailey Hong Zhuang into his arms. The taste was much sweeter than he had imagined and had a deadly seduction, which made him reluctant to let go. Bailey Hong Zhuang's flush had already become flushed, and the air in her mouth had gradually disappeared. It wasn't until he felt that Bailey Hong Zhuang was overwhelmed that Di Bei Chen released Bailey Hong Zhuang. Looking at the beauty before him, Di Bei Chen's heart was filled with emotions. He quietly leaned near Bailey Hong Zhuang's ear, smiling and saying, "Wifey, next time remember to close your eyes." His words made Bailey Hong Zhuang's cheeks become red like apples, and her earlobes were also red as if they were going to bleed. Di Bei, Bailey Hong Zhuang felt indignant. This damn guy really liked to make her look foolish and also dare to laugh at her. Seeing the burning brilliance in Bailey Hong Zhuang's eyes, the smile in Di Bei Chen's eyes deepened. Wifey is really cute, especially when she is shy. You scram. Bailey Hong Zhuang was feeling displeased. This guy really didn't care for his face. His thin was becoming thicker and his actions more and more overdone. However, when Bailey Hong Zhuang was ready to drive out Di Bei Chun suddenly held Bailey Hong Zhuang in his arms. The broad and warm embrace enveloped Bailey Hong Zhuang, and she could smell a faint and intoxicating fragrance. It was the fragrance of Di Bei Chun. What are you doing? Go out. Bailey Hong Zhuang was ashamed, but she was helpless against this guy's tricks. Di Bei Chen's hands on her gradually tightened, firmly holding Bailey Hong Zhuang, as if to meld Bailey Hong Zhuang into his bones. Wifey, thank you for agreeing to be with me. Di Bei Chan slowly whispered. He had never felt this happy until Bailey Hong Zhuang agreed to be with him. Hearing these words, Bailey Hong Zhuang stiffened, and her struggling figure quietly stopped struggling. Chapter 599 Hatred. Li Yu, in this life, I will never wrong you. Di Bei Chen's words were firm and sincere. For as long as he would live, his heart would belong to only one woman. Bailey Hong Zhuang's red lips gradually curved in a gentle and happy smile, and her hands slowly wrapped around Di Bei Chen's waist. I want to hold your hand and grow old with you. From the moment she agreed, she never thought about separating. What she wanted was only Di Bei Chen's heart. As for other superficial objects, she never cared for things. With Bailey Hong Zhuang's voice falling, Di Bei Chen's embrace on her tightened a bit, and his smile became even more dazzling than before. Me too. I want to hold your hand and grow old together. The news that Chen Wanya had actually stood up quickly spread through the imperial city like the wind. No one knows how or when, but it had become a hot topic of discussion for everyone. In the Prime Minister's official residence, Li Yu was still immersed in the joy of Prince Xianyuan Huan's return, but she was worried that Xianyuan Huan would be displeased after seeing her appearance. Both these emotions mixed, and her mood became extremely complicated. Prince Xianyuan Huan, to be the wife of such a distinguished person, was her biggest dream. After kicking away the two stumbling blocks Bailey Hong Zhuang and Bailey Yuyan, she had finally become Xianyuan Huan's fiancée. However, she was really saddened by the current state of her face. At this moment, a servant girl gave her a message. Miss, Bailey Hong Zhuang came back from Songlan College. Hearing this, Li Yu had a touch of disgust and resentment in her eyes. That woman has also come back. That is normal. But her disabled husband hasn't come back since she left. Could it be he doesn't want her? Li Yu chuckled. Her voice was full of ridicule and degradation in her eyes. Although she could not find evidence, she always felt that the sudden appearance of so many freckles on her face must be due to Bailey Hong Zhuang. Therefore, she was extremely hateful towards Bailey Hong Zhuang, and she hoped that Bailey Hong Zhuang's days would be extremely miserable. Only then would she be happy. Di Bei Chan had been away from Fengbo country for a long time. Although Bailey Hong Zhuang's marriage to the crippled was enough to make her happy, and if that cripple had even abandoned Bailey Hong Zhuang and left, it would make her feel even better. The servant girl looked at Li Yu's face, and her voice was full of embarrassment. Miss, Bailey Hong Zhuang came back with Chen Wanya. Li Yu was stunned, and then her eyebrows furrowed, and in her dark eyes flashed a trace of doubt. When did that prince go to the college? He is just a cripple. Did he go to the college to have himself laughed at? Miss, I heard that Chen Wanya's legs are cured, good enough to stand up. The servant girl said in a small tone. As soon as this was said, Li Yu's look changed suddenly, as if she had seen a ghost. Her eyes were focused on the servant girl, and she could not believe what she had just heard. What did you say? Say it again. Listening to Li Yu's fierce questioning, the body of the servant girl trembled, and a hint of fear crept up her little face. and she timidly shrank away. Today, the Wang Ye and Wang Fei came back. The two were holding hands. They were seen by many people walking on the streets, and now the news has spread throughout the imperial city. Gotcha! Li Yuyu's face was stiff and ferocious, and her hands directly pushed the teacup on the table to the ground. How is that possible? How can he stand up after such a long time? What kind of person was Chun Wang Ye? If the prince had really stood up, then hadn't he changed into a dragon and phoenix? Chapter 600. That slut. How is she deserving? At the thought of this, thick jealousy and hatred swept through Li Yuyu's heart. As everyone knows, the Chun Wang Ye had a one-of-a-kind appearance and temperament. If it were not for the disability in his feet, he would most definitely be the most admired man of all of Imperial City's maidens. Even now, although he had been crippled, there were still many women who loved him. Previously, Bailey Hongzhuang had married a disabled person, and this had made her gloat with ridicule at her. Now that Chen Wang Ye had stood up, what would the scene be like? That slut, how does she deserve this? Li Yuyu was angry. She hated that slut, and only hoped that her days would be extremely miserable. If it were not for Bailey Hongzhuang, she would now be known as the most beautiful maiden in the city. Would she be ashamed to see others because of the freckles on her face? If it wasn't for Bailey Hongzhuang, she wouldn't have missed the royal hunting game the last time. She would certainly be a student of the college, and she would even be there with her fiancé, the crown prince, and become the object of envy of many. Now, she could only stay in her own room, worrying about her face. That woman she could trample under her feet and was worthless. How had she become so outstanding now? Miss, don't be angry, don't hurt your body, the servant girl quickly said. Li Yuyu's face was gloomy, and her eyes were filled with hatred. Damn, how can that Bailey Hongzhuang act so prideful? Did you inform General Dai about this news? A doubtful expression appeared on the servant's face. The general is in a period of mourning because of his son and daughter's death. Recently, he rarely appears in the public. What does Miss mean? Li Yuyu's lips curve in a dangerous arc. General Dai's daughter is dead. Now even his son was killed. Bailey Hongzhuang has returned to the imperial city. What do you think General Dai will do? Bailey Hongzhuang was so arrogant, and there were many people she had offended. She believed that once General Dai knows that Bailey Hongzhuang had come back, he would never let Bailey Hongzhuang off easy. Since Bailey Hongzhuang had offended her, she would naturally want to find ways to snuff out Bailey Hongzhuang's happiness. You go and inform General Dai about his news. Hearing this, there was faint hesitation revealed on the face of the servant girl. Not going. Li Yuyu's tone was scary. I know you will get this job done, right? The servant girl made a sound of acquiescence, quickly saying, Miss, I'll go. She looked at the figure of the servant girl quickly walking away, and Li Yuyu finally showed a satisfied expression. Damn Bailey Hongzhuang. I will never let you stay happy. In the imperial palace. After the emperor, Xinyuan Yutian knew that Di Beichun had returned, so his face also revealed a rare expression of panic. In his heart, it can be said that there were 10,000 regrets. If he had known that there was still a day when Di Beichun could stand up, he would not have turned a blind eye to all the insults that Di Beichun had suffered in the past 3 years. Although he had always known that Di Beichun's identity was not simple. After all, any person sent from a cultivation sect would naturally not be simple. It was for this reason that he had given Di Beichun the status of a prince, to eat and drink as he pleased. However, after a year had passed, there was no progress seen with Di Beichun, and he had been mistaken for the illegitimate son of the emperor, and even the common people talked about it. This was detrimental to his face. Therefore, later on, he was a bit less polite to Di Beichun. But after all, that who would think that a person who had been disabled for 3 years would one day stand up? Chapter 601. Panic. Xinyuan Huan, Xinyuan Yutian was almost certain now. The matter of Di Beichun suddenly being able to stand up was absolutely not unrelated to Bailey Hongzhuang. It was most likely that it was Bailey Hong Zhuang who had cured him. As soon as he thought of Bailey Hong Zhuang's achievements, Xin Yuan Yutian regretted his decision a lot. If he knew that Bailey Hong Zhuang would have such achievements now, however the matter may have been, he would not have let Xin Yuan Huan cancel the marriage contract. At this person, he constantly wondered why Bailey Hong Zhuang, who was such a wonderful person now, why was she so unremarkable in the past? Swindler. This was definitely the best liar that Xin Yuan Yutian had ever seen. The most important point was that Bailey Hong Zhuang was now so high profile. What could he even do to that Bailey Hong Zhuang? Xin Yuan Yutian was caught in a dilemma. At this point, his regrets were of no use. The only hope he had was to minimize the damage. The return of Di Bei Chun and Bailey Hong Zhuang was undoubtedly an excellent opportunity. He had to find a way to understand Di Bei Chun's stand on the matter. Otherwise, he would really be walking on eggshells. Xin Yuan Huan really didn't understand why his father and mother were so nervous after knowing that Di Bei Chun had come back. Even if Di Bei Chun could stand now, he was still a prince of Feng Bo. Could he still treat them with any disrespect? Mother Empress, tell me what identity Di Bei Chun has. Why are you sitting here with Father Emperor? Xin Yuan Huan looked at Jiang Jining in front of him. He really didn't understand. They were the royal family of Feng Bo. They were in existence above tens of thousands of people. There was no need for such worry. He had never seen his mother and father this worried since he was a child. Seeing Xin Yuan Huan's incomprehensibility about the matter, Jiang Jining sighed and looked sad. Di Bei Chen's identity is not as simple as you think. In my opinion, you should still find a way to build a good relationship with Di Bei Chun. If he hates you because of what you had done before, then even if it is me or your father, we can't help you. When these words were heard, Xin Yuan Huan's expression suddenly changed. He has not expected things to be this serious. It's hard to think. Di Bei Chen's identity was even higher than his father's? This was not impossible, but for such an existence, it was impossible for them to appear in Feng Bo, and it was even more impossible to become the crippled prince of Feng Bo. As soon as he thought of his previous humiliation of Di Bei Chun, Xin Yuan Huan's heart became cold. Mother Empress, you and father, what are you talking about? Xin Yuan Huan's eyes were a little anxious. Before he had listened to the guesses of other people, he only knew that Di Bei Chun was really the illegitimate son of his father. Towards the proof of this shame, he was naturally rude and would not be polite. He even felt that even if Di Bei Chun died, he had nothing to do with him. Di Bei Chun, he is from a martial arts cultivation sect. Now, Jiang Jining no longer concealed it from Xin Yuan Huan. In fact, this news could no longer be concealed. After Xin Yuan Huan understood everything, his face became pale in an instant. Mother Empress, since Di Bei Chun has such an identity, when I humiliated and tortured him, why didn't you remind me? Xin Yuan Huan panicked. At this moment, he finally understood why when Di Bei Chun faced him, it was always like he was air. In fact, comparing the identity of the two people, it was indeed the difference between clouds and mud. Chapter 602 Feeling Embarrassed. Jiang Jining over the years, his triumph, his arrogance, everything in front of Di Bei Chen's eyes was only a joke. If it had been him, he would definitely not have the temperament and calmness that Di Bei Chun had shown. For a long time, he had only considered him to be an illegitimate son of his father, so his dislike for Di Bei Chun was completely understandable. But the true identity of Di Bei Chun was so high. Then he had fallen from that altar to having the status of today. Such a thing was simply unacceptable for an average person, let alone being able to endure such humiliation. At the thought of this, Xin Yuan Huan felt that Di Bei Chun was really terrible. His emotions were all so deeply hidden in his heart. He really was a cultivator from a big sect. The situation at the time was very complicated. I, as well as your father, were helpless. Jiang Jining sighed, and some helplessness showed on her face. Di Bei Chun is a distinguished person, but he fell from grace because of the disability in his legs. When he got here, some people said that they didn't want Di Bei-chun to have a good time here. So, and your father had never stopped you. However, even still, Di Bei-chun's identity is not simple. Once the sovereign returns, or there are other variables, and that person does not admit it, your father and I will become scapegoats. It is for this reason that I and your father have carefully considered everything for the past 3 years, neither letting Di Bei-chun's days be too comfortable, but also not daring to let Di Bei-chun suffer too much. Jiang Jin sighed. For this matter, it could be said that she and Xinyuan Yutian had thought for a long time. Originally, they only thought that after the sovereign returned, with Di Bei-chun's identity, he would return to the sect, but what they had not expected was that Di Bei-chun would stand up. This was like a miracle. Di Bei-chun had stood up after 3 years of disability. Not only that, according to the news they had received, Di Bei-chun had earlier returned to Tiangang Zone to clean up all those who had previously acted against him. Today's Di Bei-chun was no longer the same as he used to be, and he no longer had his previous destiny, but was a noble young lord. Even if she and the emperor saw Di Bei-chun, they needed to be polite, and they wouldn't dare to be the slightest bit disrespectful. Hearing this, Xinyuan Huan understood this. As his mother said, this is the only best way to check and balance between everything. It turned out so. Xinyuan Huan sighed. It can be said that he had still been quite dissatisfied with Di Bei-chun, and he even had an idea of teaching Di Bei-chun his place. Now all those had gone. He only hoped that Di Bei-chun could forgive him for everything he had done. Otherwise, if Di Bei-chun won his life, then he would be helpless. Suddenly, Xinyuan Huan frowned. In that case, isn't it strange that Di Bei-chun agreed to get married to Bailey Hongzhuang? If Di Bei-chun was just an ordinary prince, it was not surprising for him to marry Bailey Hongzhuang. His identity was so honorable, though. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang was the daughter of a general, she was definitely not worthy of him. Just as Di Bei-chun had refused all the previous marriages his father had proposed, he could have refused it directly, but why did he agree? Jiang Jin shook her head. I don't know. According to my opinion, it is very likely that Di Bei-chun likes Bailey Hongzhuang, so he married her. For this matter, she could no longer think of other reasons. Di Bei-chun has come to Fengbo to 3 years, and Tiangang Zone had not made any movement. Therefore, she and Xinyuan Yutian also felt that the possibility of Di Bei-chun returning was getting smaller and smaller. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.